is about to the tune of 1 lakh crores is what she said. Do you have a back of the envelope calculation for what this means, the increasing of the slab from 7 to 12, what this means for various income brackets? Or if you can give us first your thoughts on increasing from 7 to 12 and then we can go to the...
No, I think from 7 to 12 is a big jump, and I think the entire, it is putting money into the hands of the the individual here, which is much needed. Also, I think the entire rationalization of TCS and TDS will also help, especially in terms of dividends. There'll be a reduction there. So the fine print needs to be seen. But I think overall the aim has been targeted at middle class, particularly salaried middle class, which I think is a huge advantage, because usually that's the category.
Yeah, anyone up till monthly income of 1 lakh now.
Basically,
doesn't pay. So 12.75. So that's over and above your standard deduction, also, mind you. So as she said, it was 12.75. That now, if you're a salaried
to know
person,
how many people are actually affected directly by this move. So let's try to get those statistics. Yeah,
we'll try and get it. But I think
we may also see more people actually coming into the tax bracket because of this, because there are a lot of the smaller sort of people who are not getting much salary, but who would have been sort of staying outside some of the numbers that Gautam was talking about earlier. Some of them might slip
Also,
in.
the other thing is this is for the new tax regime. So this might incentivize more people moving into the new tax regime.
Because rates, the old regime no longer will be as attractive. So
can I throw some numbers again?
Yeah.
Since 2018-19 budget, the personal income tax numbers have been rising as a total percentage of receipts from 16% to 19%. Corporation tax has reduced from 19% to 17%. Perhaps when we hit budget 26 and look at the receipts that have happened, there may be a reversal of these numbers, where the personal income tax as a percentage of receipts would slightly reduce, and maybe corporate tax.
So Rajiv Desai, your first comments on this is the big headline. Like I said, the reason why we are focusing on this is most important to our viewer, to the middle class. This increase of the basic exemption from 7 lakhs to 12 lakhs. What does it mean?
Well, everybody welcomes a buck in their pocket, that's for sure. So in that sense, it's a good thing. A little more back of the envelope calculations would
actually give us a better... You have a chart of what this might mean for people above 12, 15, 20.
80,000 at an annual level means 6,600 per month.
Yes.
So maybe it's incremental and not really transformative.
No, so that's at the lower end. That's at 12 lakhs. That's at 12 lakhs. The higher you go, if you're for example above 20 lakhs.
At 18 lakh, the benefit is 70,000. And at 25 lakh, it's 1.1.
Yeah.
So anything between 6,600 to say 9,200 would be the benefit.
About 10,000,
depending on which slab you're in.
Yeah.
No, but the big question is, Saket, will this flag, I mean, the issue of consumption flagging, will this address that? If you put 6,000 or...
it's big enough.
You don't think it's big enough, Saket Mishra?
I think it's one of the steps, and it will definitely improve things. I don't think it's the only thing that's required. There is... Eventually, consumption also has to be on the basis of people's expectations of earning more, and I think that will come hopefully from some of the other things that they've done in terms of ease of doing business, etc. That will again release some more money into the market.
What are some of the other things that you find interesting in this budget, from the issues that we talked in the lead up to the speech?
Well, I mean, I look at, let's say, some of the things around tax relief in terms of whether it's the customs duties or direct taxes. The emphasis on sort of self-evaluation and having the tax authorities actually look at things later, that has improved. I think there were a couple of places where some of the approvals around import duties are being reduced for things that are required in the economy. I think that's going to change things. The protection that we have offered to particular sectors where there was a inversion of taxes, I think that's going to help. Overall, I find that while they may not be sort of glamorous headlines, what I liked was that there was an attempt to keep moving in the right direction on ease of doing business, which I think will show up.
So on the tax slabs, we now have the new slabs that the minister announced. So above 24 lakhs, it's 30%. Between 20 to 24 lakhs, it's 25%. Between 16 to 20 lakhs, it's 20%. And 12 to 16 lakh, it's 15%. So that's the rationalization. So I think in the earlier there were 6 or 7 slabs. Now you're bringing it down to 5. So from 7, it's come down to 5, which again is a good thing. The number of slabs need to reduce, the rates need to reduce. I think she's moving in that direction. But again, I come back to the big headline is from 7 lakhs to 12 lakhs, you don't have to pay income tax. But also the rationalization, above 24 lakhs, 30%, and that's it. That's
We're also forgetting a couple of other things, like the number of rates and thresholds above which TDS is deducted.
Correct.
That's what the TDS,
You know, to be
TCS is
reduced. So that's important because, you know, limit for tax deduction on interest for senior citizens to be doubled from 50,000 to 1 lakh. Annual limit for TDS on rent to be increased from 2.40 lakh to rupees 6 lakhs. Those are significant. Threshold to collect tax at source on remittance under RBI's liberalized remittance scheme to be raised from 7 to 10 lakhs. So there's that. There's also, of course, a promise of the new tax bill that is going to be kicking in, which is important. Yes, exactly, and the point that you were just making. Also, of course, there are the individual slabs which have also been revised, and that augurs well. So there will be net some amount of money now that, you know, the middle class will be able to save and perhaps spend, hopefully spend, not save for a rainy day. But, you know, the thing is that while we chase the big headline, and we're going to come back to it because obviously it's the most direct connect with the public, what about deregulation? What about some of the other big steps, the reformist steps that were supposed to be taken? Of course, we can discuss that.
Only one that they've
Nothing
done
to be
is for within your financial sector. They said FSDC will take on some amount of regulatory impact assessment for some of them. But apart from that, there's actually nothing else that's
Is
come.
that the
We were
reason
talking
why the
about
stock
how
markets...
Jan Vishwas 2.0 will be better.
Yeah.
It's not. She has said there will only 100 more provisions will get decriminalized. So again, I think they're just playing around.
So there's big
needless.
support
It's a waste of time.
There's a big support to MSMEs. There's a fund for startups.
And urban.
Yes, and urban
urban
renewal.
challenge.
And there's new schemes for women, SC/ST, first-time entrepreneurs. And there's a national manufacturing mission which has been announced. But I think, you know, when it came to deregulation, there was an announcement made.
I think a committee, I think they're
yes.
setting up a committee to look at
So-
deregulation for non-financial
So how will the
sectors.
markets and how will reformists read that? As something that's been kicked down the road? Or, you know, I don't know the immediacy, I don't know the time limits, I don't know, you know, we don't have a horizon for whether those steps will be taken and when will they be
I'm
taken.
being told that the markets are rebounding. Is that correct?
Just checking.
And
As far as the consumer goes, I mean, Godrej is up 5%. Hindustan Lever is up 2%, ITC is up 3.5%.
So basically all the FMCG stocks are doing
FMCGs
well,
are
which
doing
means
very
that
well.
the
consumption-
That's where this new
thrust is.
4,000, 6,000 rupees.
Actually, the markets are a bit further down compared to 10 minutes ago. The Sensex is at 77,308, which is down by 0.25%. 10 minutes ago, when Gautam and I were checking, it was down by 0.18%.
Okay.
The Nifty 50 is down by 0.17%. The Nifty Bank Index is also down. Nifty Mid Cap 100, which was actually in green 15 minutes ago, is
down,
also
right.
now in the red.
No, but what does it say to you that all of these major indices, broad indices are in the red, but FMCG stocks are up? What does that say?
That fundamentally is a reflection of the fact that there's now likely to be more money in people's pockets in the middle class. So people are expecting that there'll be more consumption. I mean, fundamentally, it's coming.
I think to me that's a fascinating story in itself. The way the markets are reacting. Some stocks, like Gautam said, ITC, Unilever, etc., are up, whereas
But
the rest
the
of the
larger
markets.
thing is not moving. Largely, it seems, and it's too early. We still have to see the fine print and so on, and we still have to see the fine print in the personal tax one. But largely, capex is down. Right, or it looks like at least the estimates for revised estimates fairly down. So, and there's no big bang reform.
Nothing.
There is no nothing moving the animal spirits of the economy. A lot of stuff for Bihar, shoring up of Bihar.
That's the point.
Makhana
And
Commission.
Makhana, then your
Makhana,
Udan Airport.
yes,
That
Udan
also,
airports and
Udan as well.
Bihar was mentioned about 3 or 4 times, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and that sort of is political signaling.
It was spread across multiple things,
Yeah,
wide
yeah.
breadth of Bihar.
That's right.
Interestingly, very little of Andhra, but Andhra's got a lot of stuff just before the budget.
That's
so.
right. So
Also, Andhra doesn't have elections this year.
Yeah,
Bihar does.
exactly.
I think
So there you
I
go.
think that makes a big
There
difference.
is this central KYC.
No mention of
mention of
disinvestment at all.
disinvestment.
Okay.
There's a central KYC that she has announced,
Which-
and
which has
and I
been
think
the-
that's going to be a one-time big problem by all of us who will have to do this KYC. But I hope after this there will be no more further KYC.
But except
The
this
other-
has been
there will be
in the
periodic-
pipeline for a while.
but
Periodic.
I believe they will be nominal.
Periodic updates.
So just to throw it out there, how close are we to the EAC's vision and his recommendations? Quite far.
Quite
you
far.
say.
This insurance, they are planning to make it 100%
100%,
FDI.
yeah.
I do not think this is a good idea.
No, but
Okay.
it's
They're
with a
calling
caveat.
it, they're-
Exactly.
There is a
It's a
caveat.
good
Caveat.
They're
caveat.
calling it a reform, but reform doesn't mean FDI, and particularly in insurance, which has repeatedly, consistently shown itself to be more of an industry,
Pirate industry.
gouging kind of an industry under the eye of the regulator, which has become an
No, but
industry association.
there is a flip
so
side
I'm
of
not
it.
sure whether
Premiums being
allowing
invested
this
in the country
there is
is a
an
good
caveat.
idea.
It's a good idea.
That
I don't
actually
think
goes
that's
into
why.
It's a
because
longer
they've
term
said
debate,
that
but
it's 100% only if all the entire
Premiums
premium is
collected.
invested within the country.
Yeah.
but
I don't
I'm
think
just
so. I
saying
think
that
you look at it from the consumer point of view.
Yeah.
Insurance industry has not been
But
very.
look, I mean,
there
that's
is a
global
distraction,
trend, right?
and we're all sort of focusing on the distraction, very welcome distraction for a lot of people. So let's not, by any standard, sort of underplay it. It's a very important move to put, give somebody a little bit to cheer about in a usually larger growing dismal scenario, brutal scenario. But fundamentally, have we moved closer to that 1991 moment, so to speak, that so many people have been talking about? I don't know.
Not even in the same ballpark.
Not even in the same ballpark.
And whether this is enough for even a 7% growth rate, I'm not really
So I don't see
sure.
growth here.
I don't see growth either.
Yes, middle class and all
paisa mil gaya.
good luck to them, and may they be happy and all of that. But the growth is missing from this budget.
You said
I don't
growth,
see it
growth,
yet.
growth. You said if this is not going to be a reform budget, it's not going to be a budget
because-
at
Well,
all.
all of you said tax cuts, and she's delivered her tax cuts. So, that's one thing you've got
that's-
to give credit to
And
the finance
something
minister
That
for.
credit is given. Now let's move forward. And
what
that
is
credit
next?
is there.
No, but can I also do a round the table on the stuff that's expected to become more expensive and the stuff that's expected
May I
to
give a
become
quick
cheaper? Yeah,
update,
quick.
Zaka? We've been talking about the stock market. In the last 5 minutes, it's falling further.
Further down.
It's now down by about 0.4%.
And you reckon it's largely the capex thing. Also, there was expectation about rationalization of STCG, LTCG, the STT.
So all of that.
Did you hear anything from the budget on that?
I didn't
Okay.
hear
So
anything.
maybe
I
it's
could have
because of that
missed
as
it,
well.
but fundamentally, this is reflecting the fact that there is no big bang wow thing
Announcement.
for investors.
There's no
for
wow
investors.
factor in the
Apart
budget.
from the more money in the middle class pockets.
No, so I was also curious to know about this whole incentives for electric vehicles. I think she's reducing the customs duty on lithium-ion batteries, and therefore that will give a fillip to electric vehicles. Is there anything else that you reckon might become cheaper because of some of the reduction in customs duty? I think some drugs, some 30-odd drugs.
So that was interesting. From a healthcare point of view, I think a lot of the drugs are moving to zero duty or low duty. Plus, I noticed the entire thing of opening cancer centers across various district hospitals, which I think is fantastic.
The other important point is the momentum in rural India. There's been a push to ensure that doesn't flag. Loans via Kisan credit card limits have been
The limits
increased.
have
So
gone
that's
up.
very important actually. Also credit card cover for MSMEs. So job creation to expand from 5 crores to 10 crores for startup MSMEs, credit cover expanded from 10 crores to 20 crores. So look, I mean, if you really look at it from a workman sort of point of view, there are some small incremental changes which will perhaps continue to emphasize the importance of creating jobs. Nalin is raising his hand,
I want to
and
make a
it's an
quick
ominous
point.
raise of the hand.
Sorry, I want to make a small update. You know, this 12 lakh thing is not a small thing because 80% of Indians earn below 12
lakhs.
right?
That's
so,
right. That's
so
the
in
number.
that sense, the wider political import of this is going to be much wider than.
No, we talk
than
about the Bihar
markets.
elections. The Delhi elections are 3 days away, and I think this will have an impact.
Just think
on the
about
Delhi
the gig
elections.
economy. Think about so many people who were finding it difficult to
So
make
you have
ends
social
meet.
sector for the gig economy now. in the
Yes,
PM
you have
That's a
security
very small
guards.
amount.
You have security
That's-
guards. You have people who are employed as chauffeurs. you
Delivery
have,
boys.
Exactly. This is someone has lifted a huge rock off their chests, and I think fundamentally, if you're really looking at goodwill to accumulate towards the government, this is the headline that's going to bring in. I don't know how this will sort of go down with the big analysts, etc. But
It's a very conservative budget.
it's a
beyond
conservative
that.
budget. Okay, fine. But if you look at
beyond
messaging,
tourism
political
has had
messaging.
a couple of positives here, including infra status to some of the tourist and restaurant buildings that will come up as part
Also
of your
homestays, I think there's
no
some
homestays are under
exemption
your
being-
mudra. That is already there, but it's also got infrastructure status, if I'm not mistaken, for some of your tourist infrastructure that will be built.
Also,
So which means you're opening
after
up
all
of
these
more
cuts,
loans.
the fiscal deficit for last year is 4.8. For the proposed is 4.4. This is very big. And therefore, she's continuing on the
path.
fiscal glide
Yeah.
path.
Yeah.
But is that
towards
necessarily, I mean, just to play devil's advocate
just
here,
a macro.
is that
just
a good thing?
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Because I actually think if you look at where the markets are, for instance, and I'm not necessarily invested in it.
you should be.
No, I don't have the money. But
He spent it all on an election.
so if you look at it, let's say if you're walking in a long walkway of reform, right? What we have got is we've got now a nice carpet which is more comfortable to walk on. What
But
we
it's
needed
still a
was
long walk.
what we needed was a travelator to push things along.
putting it.
And I think that's that travelator impetus that is required, even if it means going from to 5 on the deficit. I think is worth it because we need that to push the economy to those higher growth levels.
But if there is no growth, then it's good to have a low fiscal at least.
But
No, but you know,
otherwise you lose on
I
two
agree
points.
with Gautam's point. Had she not stuck to 4.8, the markets right now they're 200 down. They would have been 500 down. So I think to that extent, yes, I think it's important to stick to the fiscal glide path. But again, coming back to the whole thing about the big complaint against the Modi government over the last 2-3 budgets was what's in it for the middle class. Now the middle class can't
No,
complain.
I think that has been
That has been
firmly
taken care of.
established.
That's been
That
established.
has been established for the next 2 budgets. I think she can exhale.
There was-
but these other parts,
As
There
the
was
can we
also
all.
interesting thing on your agri, and it was said kind of in the passing where the Dhanna Dhanya
Yeah.
Yojana, which is supposed to be a result of convergence of various agricultural schemes that exist. That's what she said, and it was said quietly in the passing when she announced. But that will be interesting to see whether this adds more or whether they are actually going to consolidate existing schemes and allocations and put it
I
here.
also have a question on the new income tax bill that's going to be brought in next week. So what may that mean for the old tax regime, the new tax regime? By the way, all these slabs that we've announced, the change of rates, the change of slabs are for the new tax regime. So again, the government is pushing people to the new tax regime, incentivizing them to move to the new tax regime. I just want to quickly go through some of the things that could get cheaper potentially. Cancer drugs, she did mention that in the budget speech. EV batteries, so that could lead to electric vehicles becoming cheaper. Mobile phones, again, that's something that a lot of our consumer base uses. Frozen fish paste, if anybody's interested in that. Leather products. Something that is expected to become costlier is flat screen TVs. So please don't move away from CNN News 18, but flat screen TVs are expected to be slightly more expensive. But I think, so when the new income tax bill is presented next week, are we then going to see an end or a timeline to an end to the old regime?
I think so.
I hope so.
I hope so, and I
Yeah.
think so.
But I don't know. Some people are addicted to
Deductions.
Deductions.
But I think Nirmala made an interesting point. If you actually now look at from these new slabs and new rates, even if you have a housing loan, even if you claim ATC reductions, you might end up paying more tax in the old regime
Than you
than
are
in the new regime.
Oh, that's a calculation that needs to be done. I don't know if people will take the trouble. They'll just say,
But simple is always better, and even these slabs are one too many, I would say.
There are
We
5
need to
slabs
go
now.
back to
Five
a
slabs, you need
3
to
slab
go down.
structure, make it simple, make it
No, but
clean.
slowly in time, because I think this is also a way to compensate for, I mean, to minimize the 1 lakh crore already that's being
The revenue that's
foregone.
being
Yeah, so you
foregone,
need to adjust for that. So maybe rationalization will happen maybe in the next 2 years till people, and once maybe more people shift on to the new scheme, then you'll have scale and volume as well.
All right, Sunil Alag is also there. Sorry, Sunil, we couldn't come to you. I mean, this is why you should be here in the studio, you know. It's out of mind, out of sight, out of mind, as they say. But Sunil, your first thoughts on the budget.
So my
that's just
first
presented.
thoughts are on the budget is, look, 75% is supposed to relate to a year. 25% is supposed to relate to the strategy and everything else. Everything that she's announced is 5 years from today, 5 years from next 5 years, we're going to spend. It's the current budget is very, very important. What she has done, the plus points are, of course, what you'll have all discussed is the tax which has gone. But then she's added that, look, this does not include, various taxes on your, what does it say? That it says that 12 lakhs to 7 lakhs, when your fine print comes out, you are not including what you made on certain items like gains, like she just said, like gains. So we have to wait and see how much of that 12 lakhs you can keep to yourself. But it will help consumption. It will help inflation, which is there. And therefore, what is one point which you all have missed out was on tourism. Tourism is very, very important for me because she's laid out a plan for 5 years. But look, for 1 year itself, you cannot lose focus. Don't go into 50 areas where India is large enough. Go into only 5 areas, which you must do this year. And those will create jobs, those who will create impulses, those, and because nobody's talked about tourism. I am talking about tourism as itself. Next 5 years, look, the Prime Minister is hung up on the poor. There's no question on it, because he's done enough for the agriculture. And you have somebody talked about growth. They've given 4 areas, 4 engines of growth, which she's concentrating on. Now, that might be an area which we need to discuss further. And tourism is very, very important because it creates jobs, it gives income, and we've got 50 areas in India. I didn't know we had 50 areas. So what is the plus point is the income tax, what she's done. But all the surcharges, we have no idea till the fine print comes out. I've been watching Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister. It's finally, 25 years ago that film came out, and BBC produced it. But it's still there, because ultimately when you see the fine print, the bureaucrats will finally have their say. They will put in an extra comma where they will control, they will do anything. But 12 lakhs is the only point where they've increased.
I just want to add this. So what does this zero tax up to 12 lakhs actually mean for you? How much money do you get in your pocket? So we now have the budget document. So up to a person having an income with income up to 12 lakhs will get a benefit of 80,000. Person having an income of 16 lakhs will get a benefit of 50,000. Person having an income of 18 lakhs will get a benefit of 70,000. Person having an income of 20 lakhs will get a benefit of 90,000. Person having an income of 25 lakhs will get a benefit of 1 lakh 10, and anyone above 50 lakhs will also get 1 lakh 10. So this is what it boils down to. This is the brass tacks of how much money you will save with this, the minimum slab going from 7 lakhs to 12 lakhs.
Look, I mean, those are significant numbers.
Yeah.
Let's, as I said, if the government was hoping for goodwill to accrue to it, it is going to get a lot of goodwill willy-nilly from this particular move. Now, if you're looking at people who study the economy, from their point of view, this would be an underwhelming budget. So I'm looking at you, and I'm asking you, therefore, is that the reason why we are seeing this sort of flatlining, or maybe even, I don't know the exact position right now, of the Sensex? And what do you think we've missed out on? And is this the path to 7.6 plus %, 7.8 plus %?
So we missed nothing.
Okay.
But we missed an opportunity to bring growth into the country.
Yeah.
Just as a small aside, the first part of part 2 was tariff, etc. Where I think she's already talking to Donald Trump. The presence of Donald Trump is already there.
How do you say that? Why so?
All these tariff lines being cut, reduction of customs duty. So before the negotiations on direct one-to-one begin, already we are cleaning up whatever tariffs are there, maybe minimally.
Did you hear Harley Davidson?
7 lines have been removed. So that may be the final negotiation.
No, but it's mostly been on
overall, I
cancer
think
drugs
this may help domestic industry also in some way, as it should. But overall, I think the budget has missed a big growth chance because you have 2 years to UP elections and then in 29. So these are the years, the first 2 years where the government can take risks. It can have fiscal imagination, it can have economic imagination and indulge and enable growth. In the last year, it won't be able to. So it's a little disappointing because I don't see much growth, and that's what the market is telling. There is no negative growth, by the way. So the markets are telling that it's flat. So it's a yawn for them.
So we are seeing in the markets an uptick in FMCG stocks. That's been happening from the moment the income tax slabs were announced. See, what you are seeing is a political outreach to the middle classes. It's not just the increase of tax limit to 12 lakh, it's also the changes in rebate and the slabs, it's also changes for senior citizens and a whole bunch of things like on the rate for rent being raised. Basically the idea is to put more money in people, make your money go longer in the at a time when increments may not be going up as much. We've just had a festival season where growth was tepid in consumption. So consumption, this is good for consumption. That's why you're seeing changes in FMCG stocks. However, I agree with Gautam, in the wider macro sense, I think the government has decided to be more careful and conservative and has decided not to go for big bang reforms. So this is almost like a holding budget. It's almost like a, just hold the line and, get these guys off our back, which is middle class, and give them something. But, you're sort of saving your powder.
Sakit, they're saving their powder for what?
Exactly.
That's a good question.
I think, it's like holding a spot on a train, but if the train moves away, it doesn't really help us much. But I think the one point that Nalin also made, that outreach to the middle class, that 100,000 crores of urban challenge budget, which if you look at India, which is urbanizing at a fast rate, all these small cities coming up all over, if we can actually use that money to build up sewage systems, to build up municipal facilities, local education, well, politically it's a great move, but also just in terms of creation of a sustainable infrastructure, because the new cities otherwise are a shambles, right? There's no planning, nothing. That can improve a lot.
Urban challenges come in the budget. There's an urban challenge.
The money, yes. But
so she specified what she wants, and they will basically, seemingly put cities to bid for this money based on what they do, which has worked with the aspirational cities.
Correct. And also for tourism as well, right? Your top 50 tourism sites and what
I just want to add this. I'm getting this from our editors in our input desk. So, while the finance minister has said that there will be zero tax up till 12 lakh rupees, it was 7 lakhs earlier, it's now 12 lakhs, there are still rates that are being put. So, 8 to 12 lakh rupees, for example, is 10% tax. So, basically, the clarification is that zero tax up until 12 lakhs because you can claim rebate under 87A. Earlier, the rebate under 87A, the limit was 7 lakhs. Now that rebate under 87A, that has now been upped to 12 lakhs. Does this make sense to you? Can you explain this to our viewers in layman language? It doesn't mean you necessarily are not paying tax, but you can claim rebate to the equivalent of the tax that you're paying.
Because you have two brackets there, right? Like you have 4 to 8 is still at 5% and 8 to 12 is at 10%. So which means that, which is where it is. So there were two ways in which I was looking, and I'm not really a tax person. One is, this is for salaried and the rest of it is in terms of what is your non-salaried income, because you have other sources of income. So either whether this applies to the other sources of income, which is not salaried income, or whether under that it is just a question of how much you can take as rebate or what would eventually end up as exemptions or whatever it is. Like pretty much like your old regime then kind of bleeding into your new regime.
And also this is only applicable for the new regime. It is not applicable for the old regime. So again,
and also for the higher tax slabs, we've given enough congratulations for the middle class. I wonder if the surcharge, I don't see any note of the surcharges going away or a clean coming out there. So we just need to read the full budget.
I think cesses and surcharges, the only change is in the custom duty.
That's right.
Where they said only one will be paid.
Exactly.
Either the surcharge.
Not on personal income.
Not on personal income.
Which is, I think, good.
I'm also told that we'll be joined by Vedika Kedia from Grant Thornton, who could explain this to us. What does this mean? So while the FM said that till 12 lakhs, it's zero tax, but if you look at the slabs, 0 to 4 is nil, 4 to 8 is 5%, 8 to 12 is 10%. What that means is whatever tax you're paying up till 12 lakhs, you can claim the exact same amount as a rebate. So net, you will pay zero tax to the government. So that's the clarification that's come in from.
It's only a technicality. I mean, the fact is, the headline is that up till 12 lakhs, you are exempted. Now, the mechanism is obviously one that is enabling you to remain on the books as a taxpayer, because that allows for accountability and assessment, and also, of course, back of the envelope calculations on just how many people are paying taxes in this country, etc., etc. But fundamentally, it is a bonanza, and it is something that middle class India is going to appreciate. And I can tell you that the mood might even be changing as quick as the next week, where there's going to be the first barometer really of whether there has been a connect on this on the ground. So I don't really anticipate that being a problem. I'm sort of more focusing right now, and of course we must get into this story because this is the one with direct connect to the public,
viewers,
but I really want to know the long-term implications of this budget, whether it's actually moving us in a direction which will help us sort of take on these headwinds and push up above that 8%, because if we have to become Viksit, then that's the number.
I personally don't see it as a growth budget which is going to enable, the kind of growth that is required or to get us to an 8%.
Are we being dismissive of some of these big sort of announcements, which of course we have to remain...
Cumulatively, maybe over the next, again, there's going to be a lag period. Maybe you'll see an 8% growth after 3 years, but we need 8% from now. right? I mean, there may be a lag there and what
Nalin,
works, but I don't know.
what's the feedback that is now coming through the loop?
The feedback that's coming through the loop is that, actually I'll read out a joke to you which somebody sent that, well, can we ask the finance minister to pay increments this year? So that's just a joke, but the point is that it reflects a wider sentiment. I think the feedback that's coming is that India Inc., a lot of people are telling us off the record that look, this is fine for the middle class, but this is not we expected much more.
India Inc.
It's tepid.
Okay. Vedika Kedia is also now joining us. She's from Grant Thornton, India. Vedika, can you explain this to our viewers? So the finance minister in a budget speech said up till 12 lakhs income, there's zero tax, but the slabs still exist. 4 to 8 is 5%, 8 to 12 is 10%, and 12 to 16 is 15%. What does that mean? What does it necessarily translate to?
So basically, the finance minister wanted to give the benefit only for middle class individuals whose income is up to 12 lakhs. So they have introduced the benefit or the exemption in form of a rebate and not exactly given a blanket exemption for everyone. So if your income is more than 12 lakhs, say if your income is 20 lakhs, then you'll have to follow the slab rates which they've given. And you will be required to pay a tax on your initial 12 lakh income also. It's not like 12 lakhs will be exempt and on other balance 8 lakhs, you have to pay taxes only on that.
Okay.
It'll be like you'll have to pay taxes so it will be from 0 to 4 lakhs will be exempt as per the new slab rates that's been proposed. And from 4 to 8 lakhs, there'll be 5%. So that is how it will be calculated. But if your income restricts only till 12 lakhs, then you will get a rebate of 60,000. Which is being given by in form of a rebate and not as a blanket exemption to all the taxpayers.
So help me understand this like a layman. If you were explaining this to a 10-year-old, you will still end up paying 60,000 rupees as tax to the government if you're earning up to 12 lakhs, but you can claim that 60,000 back as a rebate. So net, you're paying zero tax. Is that what you're saying?
It's not that you can claim it back. It's not like a refund that you get from the
At the time of
Department.
filing itself. Okay, got it.
You can claim it at the time of filing. It's a rebate.
Okay.
Basically, it's not a refund that you get.
So
back.
also, could you explain if this applies only to the new regime? Is the old regime continuing the way it is? Is there anything that we know about whether the government wants
This
to?
is only to the new regime. This is only applicable to the new regime, not to the old regime.
What about phasing out and doing away with the old regime? We were told, I think FY26 or FY27, the government will move out of the old regime. Now we're told by the minister that there will be a new income tax bill that will be introduced next week in Parliament. Do you think that will have some mention of when the old regime will end?
We're assuming that should have some mention. Currently, in the finance bill, there's no mention about that, about phasing out the old regime. But yeah, considering that all the changes on all the benefits are being given under the new regime, it is clear that the government really wants to phase out. So we are expecting that within the new income tax bill, there will be some mention about that.
So up until last year, and this is applicable for a lot of our colleagues as well, if you are, let's say, in the 15 lakh bracket or the 20 lakh bracket or the 25 lakh bracket, if you had a housing loan and if you had deductions in ATC, it made sense to still continue being on the old regime. But now with this, do you think that might change, that you would actually end up saving more in terms of the lesser taxes you pay to the government in the new regime and not in the old regime?
So I think that calculation is still to be done because we're still looking at the fine print and we're still analyzing what is the tax savings limit. If we actually, take out that ATC exemptions and those interest on housing loan, a part of benefits that were claimed. So because there has been a substantial revamp in the slab rates also under the new regime. So we'll have to just check the benefits or whether this will be more beneficial now to the taxpayer, even after the exemptions which were available under the new regime. So that I think that analysis has to be done.
Okay. All right. So we'll try and open our call lines as well. I'm sure our viewers will also have things to ask and questions as well as comments about the budget. From the point of view of our viewers, I think the most important thing is the tax rates for the new regime. I want to underline that again. Up till 12 lakhs net, you will be paying zero income tax because you can claim a rebate of up to 80,000 rupees under 87A, which means net till your 12 lakh income, you are paying zero tax to the government. Anything above that, it's there. The list is there as to, there you go, up to 8 lakhs. In the old tax, you save 30,000 rupees. The tax now is 20,000 rupees, so you have a saving of 10,000 rupees. So with each bracket, so anything less than 12 lakh rupees, you're paying zero tax. Old tax would have been 80,000. The tax now is 60,000, so which means you make a gain of 20,000 rupees. So you have those slabs. Also, because of reduction of customs duty in some items, electric vehicles expected to get cheaper, expected to get costlier, flat screen TVs, leather products are expected to get cheaper, cancer drugs are expected to get cheaper. This is the fine print. This is the devil in the detail that our viewers are interested in. But what about the big picture? And that's what our panelists here in the studio have been saying, that the big picture seems to have missed what was an opportunity. Can you explain, Saket, why you feel so?
Well, I mean, I think we had the chance to take an initiative before all these external headwinds come to us. But more than that, we are in a good place, right? The markets, the equity markets are at a relative high. Our GST receipts have been quite robust. We are seeing at least a desire for industries to want to invest, provided there's demand, blah, blah, blah. So I think it was a chance where we could actually just push that into the next round. So I mean, that's the only thing that I'm really missing, that we have waited, maybe we waited like we did post-COVID, that we want to remain conservative and therefore we will not take any risk. But you know, risk-free returns on a T-bill are zero, right? So,
I think we have some callers, so let's try and get some callers as well. Maybe they have a question or two for our experts. Mr. Ramesh Sundar Rao is calling us from Bhubaneswar. He's on the phone line. Good afternoon, Mr. Rao. Please go ahead and ask your question to our experts, please.
Yeah. This is phenomenal for middle class. This was it, and that is when beyond expectation.
Beyond expectations for the middle class. Thank you very much, Mr. Rao. I think, Rahul, that speaks to the point that you were trying to make.
As I told you, I mean, this is going to be the standard response. And I'm sort of going through a lot of commentary on Twitter also, on the back of tweets that have been put out by PIB India, etc., announcing this or amplifying the announcement made by the finance minister. And there's a whole stack of goodwill that is flowing towards the government. In fact, let me give you some hard data, and this is interesting. I've just been able to sort of get my hands on this. This is how UPA and NDA sort of compare on their record on income tax exemption limits. So in 2005, it was 1 lakh. In 2012, 2 lakhs. In 2014, the needle was moved to about 2.5 lakhs as income tax exemption limit. In 2019, 5 lakhs. In 2023, 7 lakhs. And 2025, it's now 12 lakhs. So you can see that the common perception that Modi hasn't sort of done enough for the middle class is somewhat checked by this data.
The graphic on screen.
There you go. So that's what I'm saying. So if you really look at that, that shows that, look, he hasn't been quite as blindsided to middle class concerns as the narrative seems to sort of, suggest.
Mr. Rakesh Nangia is also here. Mr. Nangia, what do you make of this announcement that up to 12 lakhs income, there's zero income tax?
In any film, 7 lakhs, we never expected the government will increase from 7 to 12 at one go. I tell you why, there's a reason for that. How many people will go out of the tax net? If you see with the exemption that you claim for 7 lakhs, now you get it for 12 lakhs rupees. I can tell you more than 2 to 3 crores people will go out of the taxable. They may have to file a tax return, but there will be no revenue coming to the government because they'll get exemption 87A. So it's a blockbuster exemption, not expected, never be discussed in any quarters. We were all debating 7 to 9, 9 to 10. 10 was the upper limit actually, being a friendly budget like that. But 12 was not there. And I have a figure with me. There were 5 crore SSC who are filing a return till 5 lakhs. 5.25 crores SSC. They all go out of the net. See the drop in the number of taxable SSCs.
Okay.
And just to give you another analogy, if you go to the next level, there only 65% of the taxable SSC will go out of the net because of this exemption. You see, I've got a demographic actually. I have a demographic of the
maths on that. If it's 5.2 crore assessees, let's assume that most of them are single taxpayer homes. Just do the math on that. Look at the number of people that actually benefit. That goes up to about 15 to 20 crores. People. That's a huge number.
I have got an exact figure now with me. 5.25 crore returns were filed under 5 lakhs. They all go out of the net. See the, then for 5 to 10 crore, 1.5 crores. And from 10 to 1 crore, there were 1 crore. So only 2.5 crore will survive. Two-thirds of the people will go out of the out of the net.
Okay.
So, government always have been fighting in the past. We want more SSEs. We don't want to have 2% of the population. From 6.65, you have come down to 3 today.
Okay, we've got a couple of callers. Let's see what their questions are. Mr. Saurav Jorhat is calling. Sorry, Mr. Saurav is calling us from Jorhat. Yes, Mr. Saurav, go ahead.
Okay, I want to know, is there any provision for the northeastern states in this current budget?
Is there any, sorry, say that again, is there any?
Is there any provision for the northeastern states?
For the northeast, okay, all right, thank you for your question. Prithvi is calling us from Guntur in Andhra Pradesh. Mr. Prithvi, go ahead.
Yeah, I have an opinion that this new tax regime is not a big relief, as government charging indirect tax much than before, like popcorn tax.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Again, this is a direct tax versus indirect tax thing that's been there. But of course, indirect tax is in the purview of the GST Council. But having said that, this whole thing about putting more money in the hands of the middle class, that was a big talking point ahead of the budget. You think the finance minister has delivered on that front?
I think done more than that than anybody expected, anybody talked, any media talked, any quarter got. None of people talked about 12 lakhs rupees. And this is like a big, I normally go, let's just say, anybody ever said in any forum, no one ever said it 12 lakhs.
All right. We also have Mr. Rajat Dhar in the studios, but I'll come to you in just 1 second. I have to go across to CII, where my colleague Kritsveen is joined by Mr. Sunil Kant Bunjal of the Hero Group. Kritsveen.
Oh yes, you've already given us the introduction, Zaka. But straight to Mr. Munjal. Mr. Munjal, what's been the big takeaway for you? Everybody's talking about the 12 lakh for the middle class, so it's certainly a big boost, but that kept aside.
So, if I look at this budget, and you can actually break it up into different components, and of course, you said, as you said, the important announcement for individuals for across the country is the big tax break. But it's also interesting that she covered a very wide spectrum, all the way from agriculture to research, to innovation, to deep tech, to clean tech manufacturing, to export support, to MSMEs, to the fund of funds for startups. But if I look at it from industry point of view, there were 3 or 4 very important announcements which came in there. One, of course, is the financial support, the guarantee support for small industry. In addition to that, the increasing the pace of M&A, setting up empowered group to look at all non-financial rules and regulations in the country. We've been talking about this for 20 plus years now. I think this is a very, very welcome step. Somehow it's missed most people's attention. I'm not hearing any noise about this. I think it's critical because so far, for the last 50 years, we've tried to simplify our regulations. We've only tinkered with regulations, many of them which are over 100 years old. And they have no relevance in today's world. So doing this de novo, I think, is a fantastic move. Of course, we wait to see the direct tax proposal, which will come in the next few days. And from what she said, that also should be a welcome shift because she said they will be simpler, straightforward, easier to understand, easier to implement, and at least half the size of the current act that we have. I also like that we focused on things like nutrition. We focused on things like education, creating more capacity in the technical institutes, creating more capacity in the medical schools. So overall, a fund for a deep tech fund, I think overall as a nation, to help us equip ourselves better in a world which is very nervous. We don't know where it will go. Countries are pulling apart with the new US administration making announcements of likely tariffs and likely new trade deals. We don't quite know where that is. So all the more reason that our focus on building our own capabilities should get top priority. And I think that's what she's done. The only thing which I found missing compared to the normal budgets was she did not announce a single number for the overall infra spend that the government will do. Of course, it's scattered in many different departments. So one will have to look at the details of the budget. And I haven't yet read the fine print. But overall, I would say a very comprehensive budget, and the lowering of tax should do one more thing which industry has been asking for a while now, is allow and encourage consumption in some manner. So with more liquidity in people's hands, you can do either more saving or more investment or more spend. And each of them actually does good. So as consumption goes up with the higher availability of liquidity, the need to build more capacity, therefore the private capex cycle should kick in, and therefore more job creation.
Very interesting you spoke of infrastructure, because Mr. Chatterjee here just a short while ago went through the fine print and said that for a change there's no spending on that front. So that's something that everybody is going to read into very carefully. But the overall sentiment, Zaka, here at CII has been it's a positive, feel-good budget and has not left anyone disappointed. Back to you.
All right, thanks very much, Kritsveen. I want to go across straight to Mr. Ajay Singh, Chairman and Managing Director of SpiceJet. Mr. Singh, top of the budget document for as far as aviation is concerned. So 2-3 things: revision of the Udan scheme, which was highly beneficial over the last 10 years. There's talk about expanding the Patna airport. There's a new greenfield airport that's being proposed in, I think, Betia, if I'm not wrong. What are your first thoughts, particularly when it comes to the aviation field that the budget 2025 has?
I think, the Udan scheme has been one of the most successful schemes of the NDA government over the last few years. The country has managed to add more than 80 new destinations that were before this, that were unconnected. And I think it was good to hear the finance minister mention the scheme in her budget speech, and the fact that the proposal is to add another 120 destinations through Udan, get in another 4 crore air passengers through Udan. I think incredible positive. Those are all big positives. In addition to that, she spoke about medical tourism. She spoke about religious tourism. The fact that they will take the 50 top tourism destinations in the country and develop those 50 tourism destinations in collaboration with the private sector and the state governments. I think those are all big positives. I think it's important that the government of India is recognizing the contribution of air connectivity, of tourism, and I think all those are big positives for the tourism and the aviation sector.
Well, Mr. Singh, just looking beyond the tourism and the aviation industry for just a few moments, this is Rahul Shivshankar. Good afternoon. The tax exemptions that have been now handed out by this government, which will benefit quite a few people, somebody has thrown up a number to say around 5 crore people. Will that also help boosting consumption, in your opinion?
For sure. I think it's a big move. To move from 7 lakhs to 12 lakhs is a big move, and the sheer numbers of people impacted with this, clearly the idea is to put more money in the pockets of people and to boost consumer spending, and that should benefit all sectors, including the aviation and tourism sectors. So big positive. But one thing that was really interesting to me was her announcement that the income tax bill will be introduced next year, and the way this whole thing is going. Firstly, the fact that this bill was only announced in July of last year, and for them to be able to introduce it so soon is an incredible achievement. And I fully expect that this bill will be far smaller, and she said that it will be half the size of the previous bill. But not only will it be half the size of the previous bill, I expect that the bill will also be much simpler. And that should lead to significantly reduced complexity and litigation. I think one of the things that bedevils this country is the over-regulation. One of the things that's a big problem right now is this over-regulation and complexity and litigation that results from the complexity and regulation. So if we can reduce that, all steps that can be taken for that are welcome, and these look like they are big steps to rethink regulation, all of them in one shot through a committee. I hope that this committee does good work, and we are finally able to address this bugbear of over-regulation that bedevils this country at this time. But there seems to be optimism that all this can happen.
All right, Mr. Singh, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us with your thoughts and perspective on Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman's budget, the 8th consecutive budget that she's presented. Rajat is here in our studios. Rajat, you've been shaking your head. I think the markets are down. Why are we having, some optimism? You heard optimism from CII, optimism from Mr. Singh, but you and the markets don't seem to agree.
Yeah, thanks. And why I'm shaking my head is that retailers finally have given a big thumbs down to Nirmala Sitharaman. I am from the money market. What I know and believe is the markets discounts everything. So they have hugely discounted what Nirmala Sitharaman today has come out on the table. So first point primarily is when they say middle class, where they are looking at middle class, where the middle class starts at. If you see just 2 days back, there was a huge debate going on LinkedIn. Somebody was saying the middle class starts at 1 crore or at 10 crore. So now here, when we say the retailer, if you just see the demographics of the retailers that are there, they are given a huge thumb down. Why I am saying this, when I left my home for the studio, we were plus 200 points up. When I got seated here and listened to these discussions over here, it is again mid-cap down by 800 points. Now, when we say that Viksit Bharat, you cannot have a Viksit Bharat by just doling out exemptions which are not even meeting the inflationary rate of increase in expenses, cost, inflation over the years, when around 30%, 35% of the middle class exposure goes to payment of the EMIs. And you are not negating that. Real estate itself has increased, residential properties have increased by around 21% CAGR over the last 3 years. So the property which was 1 crore is now 2 crore, and they are paying nearly double the EMIs, and that EMIs have not been addressed as a part of the exemption here.
Okay, that's okay. That's one particular way of looking at it. Let's go straight across to Amitabh Kant. Thank you for joining us in our studios, Mr. Kant, this afternoon. This is Rahul Shivshankar, with me, Zaka Jacob. Very quickly, coming across to you, there are two aspects to this budget. The first, of course, is the immediate impact which is being felt by the middle class. I'd like you to sort of comment on that. Is that enough? Does it go far enough? Will it do what many people are hoping it will do, which is to boost consumption? That's one. And the other aspect is, have we got lost in the headline and therefore we are not concentrating on the larger picture? Is this a budget therefore for growth that will take us beyond 8%?
So Rahul, first and foremost, this budget, the attempt has been to provide a fillip to demand, push consumption in a big way, and give away about 1 lakh of crores of direct taxes, so that there's greater purchasing power in the hands of the middle class. That, to my mind, was important at this particular point of your economy. But if you look at the overall budget, it's been done in a responsible manner, because the budget also aims at a macroeconomic stability, the fiscal consolidation, because the RE fiscal deficit was about 4.8%, and it aims at about 4.4% for the coming year, which I think is being very, very fiscally responsible. Because you also have the challenge of inflation, and therefore you need to do it in a disciplined manner. But the budget also has a very, very strong focus on labor-intensive sectors. This is the first time I've seen so much of emphasis on tourism, on textile, on footwear, on leather. So these are all labor-intensive sector. The other is that the job creation in a big way happens through the startup movement, and to replenish the 10,000 crores for the startup fund of fund will have a multiplier impact, because for every rupee that will be put in by the fund of funds, you will have 4 more rupees being put on by the venture capitalists. So the multiplier impact will be enormous for the startup. And then putting another 20,000 crore for innovation and saying that there will be a separate fund for deep tech, which requires a lot of patient capital. These are very good moves for young entrepreneurship, startups, etc. The other thing that's very important to say is that the credit guarantees for both MSMEs and startups have been pushed by the government of India. That is what you can do through the fiscal mechanism. And now, the last bit I would say is that the government's focus on regulatory reforms in a big way, because I've been a long-term believer in doing away with a lot of regulatory cholesterol. So this focus on saying that we'll scrap rules, regulation, procedures, 1 year time we'll do this, that to my mind is a very good move. And lastly, I would say making the focus emphasis on clean tech and nuclear energy are very good moves, because we import enormous amount of solar energy, solar equipments, we do that in electric vehicle, we do that for battery storage. To say that we are going to push for Make in India and all these areas will give you a lot of push towards Make in India. And opening up the insurance to 100% is also is a very progressive move to my mind, because the insurance penetration in India is still very, very low. So that should help you to take insurance to rural areas as well.
Okay, Gautam Chikkarmane with a question, but a quick follow-up. Are you disappointed that nothing was announced in this budget to tackle deregulation? Again, you sort of mentioned that there's a 1 year horizon, etc. Could it have been done now? And Gautam Chikkarmane has a question for you too.
Namaste, sir. You were the chair of the commission of which I was a member when we began this deregulatory work at NITI. In Jan Vishwas 113 regulations were decriminalized. In this budget, Nirmala ji is saying that she will decriminalize, the Jan Vishwas 2.0 will decriminalize 100. When we look at the totality of things, which is 26,134 imprisonment clauses, it seems to be hardly a flake on the tip of the iceberg. Do you still feel this is an important reform?
No, Gautam, most of them relate to the labor acts. And the labor acts are being, you are aware of the reforms which are being carried out on the labor side, and that we should push separately, because I think out of this 26,000, about 17 to 18,000 relate to the vast number of labor laws, which have already been put together in the four acts, and once those are notified, a lot of this decriminalization will take place. So I think pushing both the labor laws reforms and the Jan Vishwas Bill 2, and also pushing the states and saying that if you carry out reforms, we'll fund you through this 1.5 lakh crore fund for the states. These are very good. These are very progressive moves to my mind.
No, is this... sorry, no, go ahead.
Zaka here. I had a question. Basically, look, the elephant in the room is the trade protectionism that's going to be unleashed now with Mr. Trump. He's talking about Canada, China, Mexico, India also. What does this budget do to address that concern?
Zaka, important thing is that your globalization is getting impacted. Trade is getting impacted. Important thing is to strengthen your domestic economy. Important thing is to ensure that you are able to build domestic demand. That is what the budget does. Important thing is to make yourself easy and simple. Important thing is to push your own infrastructure. Important thing is to push your own manufacturing, become more and more competitive. That, to my mind, is really the key to handle any kind of tariff wars which will come in due course. Make yourself domestically so smart and so good by making yourself competitive, and that competitiveness will come from just being totally free of regulatory cholesterol.
Just coming back to the point, because I think that got lost somewhere. Is this a budget for an 8% growth story, 8% plus growth story?
So I think on the finance minister has done a very good job in terms of the fiscal policy. There is the other bit of the monetary policy, because I'm a great believer that credit flow to the private sector must be enhanced. India's private credit to GDP ratio is very low at 50%. In United States, it's 220%. It's Korea, it's 180%. So greater flow of credit to the private sector in a systematic, orderly manner needs to improve. The balance sheets of banks have never been so good. The balance sheet of the private sector has never been so good. So now RBI needs to pick up the baton from the budget and take forward the credit flow to the private sector.
Okay, well, we're not getting a straight answer to that question, aren't we? The market's perhaps giving us the straightest answer right now is...
Thank you very much, Mr.
Yeah.
Kant. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Stats to corroborate that.
Yeah, okay. Stats
Which
to
is?
corroborate
Yeah, for
that.
example,
Okay.
like Amitabh sir told that he didn't clarify that we are actually heading to 8, but we won't be. Why? When you're talking about competing on the global scale and becoming dominant, we have companies coming out of China preferring Vietnam and Thailand. Vietnam has a corporate tax rate of around 20%. Thailand has 23%. How can you compete when they are even being in this industries which are very competitive to India?
No, but our corporate tax rate is 22%.
No. In certain cases like forex, foreign expenses होते हैं, taxes लगते हैं on startups. वहाँ पे उन्होंने डोमेस्टिक इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए एग्जेम्प्ट किया है, लेकिन जो फॉरेन इन्वेस्टर्स हैं उनके लिए तो टैक्सेबल है।
नहीं है।
हाँ, तो वो वहाँ पे आ जाता है। एंड देन सेकंड थिंग वुड बी इन टर्म्स ऑफ द कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स रेट्स इन टर्म्स ऑफ सर्टेन अलाइड इंडस्ट्रीज दैट हैज टू बी फैक्टर्ड इन।
Okay, we'll take a break at this point. When we come back, we'll open it up again to our panelists. You can call us as well. The number is flashing on your screen in case you have a question on the new tax rates and slabs that the finance minister has announced. The big headline, of course, is zero tax up to 12 lakh rupees. The full import of that we'll try and make sense of right on the other side of this quick break. Keep it right here. And in case you want an ad-free experience, go to our YouTube. It's at CNN News 18, our YouTube channel. See you around in just a moment on the other side.
सदस्यगण, बजट के बाद राज्यपाल अभिभाषण में आपको पर्याप्त अवसर दूंगा। मेरा आपसे निवेदन है, नहीं माननीय अखिलेश जी, आपने संसद की मर्यादा को आप बना के रखें। कभी बजट भाषण के अंदर इस तरीके का नहीं हुआ, ये उचित नहीं है, ये उचित नहीं है। अखिलेश जी प्लीज, मैं आपको मौका दूंगा राज्यपाल अभिभाषण पे, प्लीज। नो, ये तरीका ठीक नहीं है। नो, राज्यपाल अभिभाषण पे चर्चा होगी। नो तरीका।
Honorable Speaker, I present the budget for 25-26. This budget continues our government's efforts to A. Accelerate growth, B. Secure inclusive development, C. Invigorate private sector investments, D. Uplift household sentiments, and E. Enhance spending power of India's rising middle class. Together, we embark on a journey to unlock our nation's tremendous potential for greater prosperity and global positioning under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. As we complete the first quarter of the 21st century, continuing geopolitical headwinds suggest lower global economic growth over the medium term. However, our aspiration for a Vikasit Bharat inspires us, and the transformative work we have done during our government's first 2 terms guides us to march forward resolutely. Our economy is the fastest growing among all major economies. Our development track record for the past 10 years and structural reforms have drawn global attention. Confidence in India's capability and potential has only grown in this period. We see the next 5 years as a unique opportunity to realize Sabka Vikas, stimulating balanced growth of all regions. the great Telugu poet and playwright Gurujada Apparao had said, Deshamante matti kadoy, Deshamante manushuloy, meaning a country is not just its soil, a country is its people. In line with this, for us, Vikasit Bharat encompasses zero poverty, 100% quality good school education, access to high quality, affordable and comprehensive health care, 100% skilled labor with meaningful employment, 70% women in economic activities, and farmers making our country the food basket of the world. In this budget, the proposed development measures span 10 broad areas focusing on Garib, youth, Annadata and Nari, spurring agricultural growth and productivity, building rural prosperity and resilience, taking everyone together on an
at News 18 and TBS Bank Budget Day Studio.
Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Today we are coming to you live from the CNN News 18 DBS Bank Budget Day studio. We had the Finance Minister just a short while ago present the budget. It's her 8th consecutive budget that she's presented. There's a lot that has come to the fore for the middle class. There's a lot that's come to the fore for Bihar. But is this enough to spur growth? Is this enough to ensure that we are on the right track as far as taking the economy out of its ongoing slump? That's something that we are going to be decoding here. Our guests continue to be with us on this broadcast, but the most important bit that every viewer, at least tuned into our broadcast, wants to know is how does this make a difference to my life? Because there is a lot of change that has come to the fore to the tax slabs, but there is now an old regime, there's a new regime, there is some changes to a newer regime, so to say, but there could be the Income Tax Act that comes to the fore next week. Will that bring in changes? Will that scrap the old regime altogether? That's a question that many are asking as well. So let me open this up to the guests that we have here. Rakesh Nangia, economist and CA, is with us on this broadcast. Rajadhar, director at Indian Investor Federation. Anuj Bali, tax expert. Gautam Chikarmani is with us on this broadcast as well. Ms. Soundarajan is with us too. Anuj Bali, before I bring in the discussion back to the studio, because then it would get difficult to come back to you, so let me get you in first. As far as the tax regime is concerned, there's still a lot of confusion as to whether you should be a part of the old one or the new one. That's really what most people want to know. What do I pick? Which regime do I pick? What is more beneficial for me?
Well, if you really see how this has been going since the past 2 years, so the government, I feel that the thought of the government is that they ultimately want to shift from the old scheme to the new scheme only. But I think for the past 2 years, what they've done is they've given you the option to choose between an old scheme and the new scheme. Now, I feel that this is a very data-driven government, and they would have data to see how many taxpayers are wanting to pay tax in the new scheme. As per my experience, as per the experience of our firm, we feel that more than 90% of the taxpayers have actually opted for the new scheme, which means that new scheme is ultimately going to be the final scheme. This is what I feel. This is what I can gauge from the speech that our Honorable Finance Minister gave today. She also tried to highlight the tax benefit that you get as an income earner of 12 lakhs or 12,75,000, where earlier you were paying about, say, 80,000 to a lakh of rupees in taxes. Now you don't have to pay any taxes there. So that's the amount of money that you save in taxes. So essentially, I feel that, the old scheme is going to ultimately phase out and the new scheme is going to take its own course, and that's going to be the final one. That's what I feel.
And could that phasing out happen sometime next week? Because that's when we are perhaps going to be seeing the centre bring in the new act, the bill that's going to be tabled in the budget session of Parliament. That's something that is being discussed as well, because a lot of hints have been dropped until now, but no clarity on when the old regime would actually be phased out. Before I get the discussion back here within the studios, let's listen into what the Finance Minister had to say.
Personal income tax reforms with special focus on middle class. Democracy, demography, and demand are the key support pillars in our journey towards Vikasit Bharat. The middle class provides strength for India's growth, This government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, has always believed in the admirable energy and ability of the middle class in nation building. In recognition of their contribution, we have periodically reduced their tax burden. Right after 2014, the nil tax slab was raised to 2.5 lakhs of rupees, which was further raised to 5 lakh rupees in 2019 and to 7 lakh rupees in 2023. This is reflective of our government's trust on the middle class taxpayers. I am now happy to announce that there will be no income tax payable up to income of 12 lakh rupees. To taxpayers up to 12 lakh of income, other than special rate income such as capital gains, tax rebate is being provided in addition to the benefit due to slab rate reduction in such a manner that there is no tax payable by them.
Nirmala Sitharaman, let me get you in, because the idea, of course, by doing this is to ensure that there's more money in the pockets, there's more money in your hands to spend it, to spur consumption. But is that enough to try and get us out of the slump that we seem to be in?
No, I don't think this is enough. I think this will add certain amount of impetus, certainly, and I think it's a great break for the middle class, and something that the middle class has been asking for a lot. But if you ask me if this is going to take us to an 8% growth rate, I don't see anything in the budget that will take us to a 8% growth rate. True that there are small nuggets here and there which are great, especially what's being done for tourism is fantastic. There's a focus, whether in terms of developing your, the smart city equivalent, the urban challenge that is there, and the fund that is created, also excellent if it's been implemented well. The fact that credit guarantee for MSMEs has gone up is also fantastic. The duty structure adjustment, all of that works. But none of it is, I think, big enough to actually drive our growth rate to what it needs to be, given the kind of employment we need to create, given the kind of targets we've set for ourselves, and given what we deserve to be at. So I think the budget misses a very big, whether it's a wait and watch, but the question is, what really are we waiting for in order to make that push?
Gautam Chikkarmani, do you concur? Do you think that more could have been done? Was there elbow room for more to be done?
Yeah, there was. But I disagree with your framing of the question. We are not in a slump.
Sure.
We have just slowed down a bit
Sure.
from 7.5 to 5.
Sure.
So we are still the world's fastest growing economy. Although earlier we were growing faster by 2 percentage points, now we are growing by 1 or 2 basis points. That's the only difference. But otherwise, we are okay. Is it adequate? Does this match the potential? Absolutely not. We should have done more. The budget could have done more. And I'm not saying the stock market is the only indicator, but all the indices, sectoral indices are down except 3, which is FMCG.
FMCG, yeah.
For instance, companies like ITC, Colgate, Britannia. Consumer durables, which is like Crompton Greaves, Whirlpool, and Realty, which is Shobha, Lodha, DLF. So I think this money in the hands of the people, which is about 80,000 for up to 12 lakh,
up to 12 lakhs,
then
yes.
70,000 next, then 1.1 lakh after that, which broadly comes out to about 6,600 to 9,000 rupees per month, will get consumed or that's what the market expectation is in these industries. But the kind of growth that India needs, the kind of imagination that India deserves, is not visible in the budget. It was visible in her earlier budgets. So the fact that lack of visibility in this budget is disappointing, although budget is not the place where you do non-budgetary stuff. You just make these announcements. So since those announcements are missing, I can only hope that they come at a subsequent, in some other policy decisions. But so far as this goes, the middle class It's excellent. It is unbelievable, actually. It is beyond expectations. So that part
And
is
that
very
comes
good.
along after many budgets where the middle class was left wanting.
That's right. That's right. So I think full credit to Nirmala Sitharaman ji on reducing taxes for the middle class. But other than that, it's a business as usual kind of a budget. I wouldn't say it's a bad budget. It could have been a better budget. That would be my only.
So there was room to do more. We have some callers that are joining us on this broadcast as well. But before I get them in, Nirmala Kidwai, ex-president of FICCI, also joins us here. Thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Your first impressions of the budget, ma'am?
I'm actually pretty impressed by how welcome the steps are on helping demand and consumption in the economy by putting more money into the hands of the middle class. This was quite a big demand on the part of industry as well, because unless we can get demand and consumption up, private sector investment doesn't go up. And I think this has actually been very significant in that it's not just tinkering at the margin, but actually increasing the levels quite significantly. So big plus there. The commitment to continue on the fiscal deficit at 4.4% for the next year, and doing that while maintaining the CapEx, the capital expenditure budget, at about the same level as was committed in last year's budget, are showing that despite this being quite a tough juggling act, I mean, you're reducing taxes on one side, on the other maintaining CapEx, really, I think, going to be seen in the analysis of the detail. There's a big focus on employment generation, as we were also expecting, particularly industries like footwear, toys, medical tourism, big employment generators. So these got mentioned, and absolutely the right areas to focus on. Again, we have to see how these translate into encouraging these sectors.
As far as job creations is concerned, Nirmala Kidwai, that was something that was looked at very keenly by a lot of people. It is something that has been the point of criticism for politically as well for this government as far as the unemployment track record goes. Do you think this budget does enough to address that issue?
I think, can we ever do enough in terms of what the country needs? No. But it certainly highlights the employment generating industries, manufacturing and services as tourism, also agriculture. And there was quite a focus on agriculture, increasing productivity, and all of that which helps in terms of productive employment in agriculture will again bring better employment and also better income into the hands of our individuals. So I think the direction is right. Whether enough or not, a lot will depend on how quickly we can implement this.
You know, there were several cautionary tales that came to the fore when the economic survey was tabled yesterday. The chief economic advisor did talk about a lot of things that the government should keep in mind. Is that something that the finance minister has kept in mind?
I think if you look at the overriding messages on regulation, ease of compliance on regulation, removing decriminalization to the extent possible, all of this saw reiteration and mention in the budget. There's clearly an effort towards ease of business, improving regulation, and the finance minister mentioned trust in the hands of those that are regulated, so that people are treated on a relationship where if you file your tax return, that there's trust that you are doing it, rather than, we can only scrutinize you again and again to make sure that you haven't missed that last rupee. And to also make that compliance easier, both in terms of interpretation, but also allowing, for example, correction of returns over 4 years rather than 2 years, so that the penalty aspect goes away. I think all aspects of easing the regulatory burden and the compliance burden, even while we do a cleanup. And I think that cleanup will come through some of the missions that were announced, mission for manufacturing, mission for trade. The idea of these would absolutely be to enable ease of doing business and also improving the regulatory frameworks, which saw so much mention in the economic survey. Job creation was a big one in the survey, and I think that sees a lot of resonance through the budget as well.
Nirmala Sitharaman, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. We have our viewers calling in as well. Several questions remain as far as the tax regime goes. Aparna from Jamshedpur is with us on this broadcast. Aparna, you have a query. Do you have an opinion about what the finance minister announced? Aparna? We'll try and get you more voices, but Malini from Chennai is with us as well. Go ahead.
Morning to everyone in the panel. My first question is regarding the Aam Aadmi Care, that is the income tax slab. Normally, even domestic people are earning, even domestic servants are earning 1 lakh per month. That has been kept in mind by the Honorable Finance Minister, and the income tax slab has been fixed to a great level. It's a welcome sign. It is for the Aam Aadmi up to a middle class, upper middle class are being taken care of very well, one thing. Number two is focus on employment. Now the bigger erection is on the corner, much focus is on the bigger development. That is also a welcome sign. Apart from that, Northeast has been again taken care of. That is the tribal area which has been given input, like the opposition is cornering the government. They only the high people or the rich. It has shown, it has proved that it is for the common and also upper middle class tribals, and it's a welcome. The Modi government is doing extremely well, and welcome the budget, and also hats off Modi ji and the finance minister. Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling in. Let's bring it back to our studios. And Rajat, I want to ask you this. As far as the Aam Aadmi is concerned, that one salaried class taxpayer seems to be placated. Is there investor confidence as well with this budget?
Frankly speaking, investor confidence is not there with the budget, because it is, I would say it is a little too late, because primary aspect that I still say and reiterate that has not been covered is two aspects. First, on the home loan interest that is being paid out, because the property prices have technically doubled in year or a 2-year period, and 30% of the outflow happens to the home loan EMIs. That has not been addressed. When you're talking about health and life insurance GST, that has not been addressed. Why I am saying this? Normally countries, whether you talk about developed or even the other, the aspirational value is the state should take care of its residents. Now here in India we know that, and we understand that we are still developing and we need growth. So therefore there is a large chunk of middle class who are taking policies for themselves, for their own parents, and taking that to cover their risk. And let me say it in a harsh way, yes, I think that is a way of making money out of insurance policies that we do pay as an, and it was not that key in last 2 months it has come. The demand had been there for the last 6 months. Key, at least please on the GST that has been paid, take care of that. Yesterday the news has come, if I am not wrong, Tata Motors in their electrical vehicle segment had become profitable as an entity without PLI being accounted for. PLI schemes aati hai EV segment mein, and that has become, and many people are jumping and taking EV. But in EVs, they also need an exemption into the GST factor. That has not been taken into consideration. Secondly, when you're talking about the blocked working capital refunds that has happened into the scooters or the EV vehicles, that has not been taken into consideration. When we talk about Indian people, they are not getting salary increments because manufacturing itself has fallen by around 6.4%. When the manufacturing is not increasing, you are saying that, okay, for the Indian investors, we are taking angel tax zero kar diya, lekin foreign investors hai, unko hum tax karenge. What do you want to say? That you want to profit out of the foreign investors? Either you have a technology, you don't have a technology. Either you have a manufacturing capital, IQ capital of China, you don't have that. What leverage Indian Inc. has? That is the foreign capital that would come. So now they have 10 different options today to go, and Trump has already told BRICS that if you are using A, B and C currency to settle the trades, I will again pump in 10% more tax on that. So in all these modalities, when you want to say, okay, come and build in India, then what from the corporates is an equitable base? No, it is not an equitable base. So from the residents also, we have fallen as if we have been failed by the government on this budget, because we are expecting at least on the home loan, at least on the GST, on the premiums, and at least on the car. Everybody takes a car, and people are going for EVs for that matter. Although I don't personally, if you ask me, I don't believe EVs are actually that non-pollutant when we say carbon emissions at a global level. But yes, even when they are joining the government's initiatives, the GST exemptions would have been expected across a spectrum of things.
But speaking of Trump and tariffs, before I get you in, I want to get in Mr. Nangia as well. A lot of people do believe that there is some hints in this budget that do somewhere address what could be forthcoming. That was something that there were warning signs of in the economic survey as well. Do you think that if there are tariffs that are imposed on India, this budget tries to do something to offset those?
See, first of all, there was a hint even as close as today morning, even yesterday, that their government is going to do something for the middle sector. There was a clear hint actually. And they don't need to be specific, underlying meaning was very clear. To that extent, it has been very well fructified. I have a simple thing actually. Has any budget since independence has given you a relief of close to 1 lakh rupees for the tax saving? We have always been talking about extra money in the pocket of a middle person. And you see historically from last, even this 10 years with this government, you used to get 10,000 extra money in your pocket. It's the first time ever you have got a 1 lakh rupees in your pocket. And I was saying in the morning, when you see your exemption basically, you see your tax and you get 87A off, you don't pay taxes to what extent? How many people goes out to the taxable net? Do you see? They may be filing a return for compliance purpose, but they will not be paying any taxes. This is running into crores. Have any steps ever been taken in the past like that? I'll share with you a little bit of disappointment, what is also important. Let's take a little bit of thing which has not been satisfied basically. One is we expect a little bit more on the manufacturing side, a more boost on the manufacturing side, because they are a little lagging behind. Manufacturing is a core part of a GDP of the country and it is lagging. With service sector, we are close to 35% of GDP, which should have been more. So there should have been something more on the part of it. It's not they have done it something, but they have not done to the expectation is concerned. Second is one thing which is the biggest disappointment, which I think have not been less talk, is the capital expenditure. Now if you see last year there was 11.11 lakh crore which was supposed to be spent on the work. And you go back, you just take a rewind back. There used to be almost like 20-25% of growth coming since last 5-7 years, which is coming. Last year was only 10%. This year it is close to 5-7 odd percent actually. There is one thing, they have not been able to spend that money. They said it in the last budget, if you need money, we'll give you the money. But even at 10 lakhs, 11 lakh crore is a substantial amount of the money which the government has been spending on it, which is close to 26-27% growth on a year-to-year basis, which is not seen in any part of the thing. So that part I agree with you. Disappointment, you should have given more thrust to the part. So the less money is coming in, but in standalone, 11.11 or 11.12 is still a very big and substantial amount of money is concerned. And I think one more could have been addressed. The government has addressed it, but we need to really dissect it. Is on employment. Unemployment is a little bit an issue, but there has been a good gainful employment. If you see the yesterday's survey, there has been a drop in last 10 years of more than half of the unemployed people. 50% drop is there in last 10 years. So I don't have the exact figures, but could have been a little bit more, would have been an extra effort. But from personal income tax point of view, sorry, I will be happy to talk to him on offhand on a lot of things which I could answer these questions. You have to see this is a budget. It's a budget which is dealing with a different matter. It's dealing as a country as a whole. It can't deal with one specific policy, one specific person actually. So you have to see historically as a country, have they dealt with the majority of things? Answer is yes. The
so out of a checklist of 10, have they at least managed to tick off, say, 7 or 8? And if that's something that has been done, then perhaps we could count it as a budget that we can do with. You had a point to make before I get in a viewer who's just called in.
No, I think just to react to what Rajat also said, I think a lot of the GST related bits usually don't come out in the budget. They're left to the ambit of the GST Council. So maybe you'll see that happening over the course of the year, through the meetings. But I think that was the limited point I wanted to make. And as far as the rest is concerned, sure, I mean, they will all have an impact as far as the economy is concerned. For middle class, it's brilliant, and I think it's been great signaling and it's much needed. So on that front, you need to be very happy. But on the rest, I think, as you said, could more have been done? Certainly.
And is that something that we feel after every budget, that sure, something more could have been done?
I just want to answer the question you had asked earlier, but it got distracted, which is that on tariffs. I think the first part of part B, she is talking to Donald Trump directly. She has removed 7 lines of tariffs. She has removed 36 she has removed customs duty on 36 medicines. So in fact, a large part of the first quarter or first 1/3 of part B of her speech is devoted to tariffs. She's sending a signal that India is ready to negotiate on tariffs with Trump, and I think that's a good step. We don't need to get animated about it, and all these threats that India is a tariff breaker and this and all those labeling that Trump has been doing. She's addressing it, and I think it's smart addressing. And yet she has left scope for negotiations, which will soon follow, maybe on automobiles or some other.
And the timing was important because we have the Prime Minister going to the United States in a few weeks from now to meet Donald Trump. So the signaling was important to be done as far as the budget goes.
This is a, I mean, technique is only for people like us who will get all this, but when you step back from the budget for a large number of people, I completely agree with him. This is beyond expectations. And I disagree with you, sir, on the real estate. Real estate prices may have gone up, but then you move away. I mean, that's an asset thing. It happens everywhere in every asset. In stocks, the market value goes beyond its earnings. Many things happen. And if you cannot afford a house in, let us say, Johor Bagh, then you move to Karol Bagh or you move to Noida. So I think it's unfair to...
so when you have a housing for all, that goes for lower section of the society, but once it comes to the middle class, we can have all the excuses for us. Don't go there, don't do this. Okay, government is taxing you on GST, let that. On the medical policy, be it. Don't take a policy. Go for the...
Sure, but maybe this is the case of you can't...
Be at the mercy of the
eat your cake and have two. It's just perhaps that's what's coming in with this with this budget, like it perhaps comes in every single year. Unfortunately, I have to take a quick pause here. I request all of you to stay on with us. A quick break. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
सदस्यगण, बजट के बाद राज्यपाल अभिभाषण में आपको पर्याप्त अवसर दूंगा। मेरा आपसे निवेदन है, नहीं माननीय अखिलेश जी, आपने संसद की मर्यादा को आप बना के रखें। कभी बजट भाषण के अंदर इस तरीके का नहीं हुआ, ये उचित नहीं है, ये उचित नहीं है। अखिलेश जी प्लीज, मैं आपको मौका दूंगा राज्यपाल अभिभाषण पे, प्लीज। नो, ये तरीका ठीक नहीं है। नो, राज्यपाल अभिभाषण पे चर्चा होगी। नो तरीका।
Honorable Speaker, I present the budget for 25-26. This budget continues our government's efforts to A. Accelerate growth, B. Secure inclusive development, C. Invigorate private sector investments, D. Uplift household sentiments, and E. Enhance spending power of India's rising middle class. Together, we embark on a journey to unlock our nation's tremendous potential for greater prosperity and global positioning under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. As we complete the first quarter of the 21st century, continuing geopolitical headwinds suggest lower global economic growth over the medium term. However, our aspiration for a Vikasit Bharat inspires us, and the transformative work we have done during our government's first 2 terms guides us to march forward resolutely. Our economy is the fastest growing among all major economies. Our development track record for the past 10 years and structural reforms have drawn global attention. Confidence in India's capability and potential has only grown in this period. We see the next 5 years as a unique opportunity to realize Sabka Vikas, stimulating balanced growth of all regions. The great Telugu poet and playwright Gurujada Apparao had said, Deshamante matti kadoy, Deshamante manushuloy, meaning a country is not just its soil, a country is its people. In line with this, for us, Vikasit Bharat encompasses zero poverty, 100% quality good school education, access to high quality, affordable and comprehensive health care, 100% skilled labor with meaningful employment, 70% women in economic activities, and farmers making our country the food basket of the world. In this budget, the proposed development measures span 10 broad areas focusing on Garib, Youth, Annadata and Nari, spurring agricultural growth and productivity, building rural prosperity and resilience, taking everyone together on an inclusive growth path, boosting manufacturing and furthering Make in India, supporting MSMEs, enabling employment-led development, investing in people, economy and innovation, securing energy.
CNN News 18 and DBS Bank Budget Day Studio.
Good afternoon, hello and welcome. You're watching our special coverage on Budget Day. We're coming to you live from the CNN News 18 DBS Bank Budget Day studio. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman just a short while ago presented Union Budget 2025. It's her 8th consecutive budget and it comes with a huge boost, especially for the middle classes. An income tax payment exemption up to 12 lakh rupees, a bonanza that many would say for the salaried taxpayer. This step will prove to be a major relief which will leave the Aam Aadmi with more money in their hands. The assumption is that will ensure that there is more consumption, will spur the economy as well. TCS threshold has also been raised from 7 to 10 lakh rupees as a push for education. There are 3 centers of excellence for artificial intelligence that are going to be established as well. Capacity of IITs and medical colleges is set to be expanded too. The union budget comes also at a time when there are several changing strategic geopolitics that we're seeing, especially with the kind of tariffs that Donald Trump, the US president, is threatening. China is in the game as well. At that time, there are several cuts, several decisions that have been taken by the finance minister to try and offset that. Major allocations have been made for Bihar specifically. Remember, it's a state that goes to polls later in the year. Finance Minister Sitharaman announced that there will be a Makhana board that is established for Bihar. There's training support that is going to be provided to these farmers as well. Several airports are going to come up in Bihar too. The budget aims to boost infrastructure capacity of Bihar. It facilitates establishment of greenfield airports. There's support for Western Kosi project that is announced as well. What is also interesting is that there is going to be the new Income Tax Act that will come into effect once the bill is tabled in the upcoming session, which is going to happen in the upcoming week, in this session in fact. Let's listen into what the Finance Minister had to say.
Personal income tax reforms with special focus on middle class. Democracy, demography and demand are the key support pillars in our journey towards Vikasit Bharat. The middle class provides strength for India's growth. This government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, has always believed in the admirable energy and ability of the middle class in nation building. In recognition of their contribution, we have periodically reduced their tax burden. Right after 2014, the nil tax slab was raised to 2.5 lakhs of rupees, which was further raised to 5 lakh rupees in 2019 and to 7 lakh rupees in 2023. This is reflective of our government's trust on the middle class taxpayers. I am now happy to announce that there will be no income tax payable up to income of 12 lakh rupees.
Let's open this up. Kailash Adhikari, MD Governance Now, is with us on this broadcast. Rajat Chopra, founder and CEO of Bankers Club, is with me here in the studio as well. And we are also taking your calls live on this broadcast. The numbers are flashing at the bottom of your screens because the salaried taxpayer has got a major relief today. But there are still some questions that remain as to what's beneficial, which regime to pick, how much exemption are you going to get based on which regime. Is the old regime going away altogether? All of those questions will be answered here. At least we'll try to do so if you call in with your views, with your questions on this broadcast. But let me ask Rajat Chopra first this. Your first impressions of the budget. Do you think this is a good budget?
I think it's clearly a common man budget. It's clearly a common man budget where, you know, the emphasis have been in terms of increasing their purchasing power, consumption by reducing the slabs to that so that they can make more money in their hand. But at the same time, I would say that once the common man budget, it's clearly a Viksit Bharat budget, it's clearly a MSME focused budget, it's clearly a sectoral focused budget, but a lot depends, Poonam, now on the execution of this. You know, while we have good schemes at the center level, how they percolate to the down in terms of the real money in the hand with the MSMEs or the common man, I think that will make a large difference. And I think it's time for us. I think in last 10 years, government has set the stage for the country to be at the global forum. But eventually what will take this to a next level is how these beautiful schemes are benefiting the real MSME, are benefiting the real common man. Saving a lakh of rupees under this new regime definitely helps them. But at the same time, how MSMEs are progressing, the 7 crore MSMEs are progressing in terms of the ease of business, in terms of the ease of availability of capital at the right ROI, I think that will make a real difference, because if they are not able to prosper, the prices will never come down. The money that I am saving as a common man will not be a very kind of meaningful money
which in my you perhaps hand. Won't save at all. All of that that you have extra money in your hand would end up getting spent.
It's all correlated. It's all a vicious circle.
Correct. And before I get in Kailash Adhikari as well, I'm just tossing across to CII where my colleague Christine Walia joins us.
Oh yes, Poonam, as promised, top CII voices with us here on CNN News 18. Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee, Director General CII, with us here. Thank you so much for speaking to us, sir. You know, one thing which was being spoken of in the run-up to Nirmala Sitharaman's announcement was nothing like it if this budget accelerates growth. You know, if it ensures deregulation to a certain extent and, of course, decriminalizes initiative. And safe to say, I think we've achieved all of that or at least on the path to?
All three, plus more, if I may say, because one big ask was also consumption demand. And how do you boost consumption? And I think the way it has really focused on consumption, the middle class, the lower income bracket, the entire focus on easing of tax returns, so to say, a huge focus on seeing to it how we can generate savings, we can ease the type of the basket that we see in terms of a middle income group or a lower income group expenditure pattern in terms of healthcare and food, etc. Brilliant, actually. And look at the way one has also addressed the supply side in terms of agriculture, which actually addresses a huge issue. I mean, there are a series of things one can talk about agriculture, but cutting that out of what she has done. But I think to come to the point that eases the supply side of it in terms of inflation. So brilliant. And also the way one sees the investment drivers. So I add 3 more to what you said. 3 that
we have 6 already and counting. Yes. But Mr. Banerjee, you know, speaking of growth, there was so much being spoken of whether or not we will see a huge change in personal tax, announcements related to personal tax, and perhaps something that has far exceeded all our expectations. So that certainly is a big boost for the middle class. But that said, there's lots been spoken of as far as initiatives towards ease of business, MSMEs. So, you know, a lot of good news coming in for the young entrepreneurs as well. How do you evaluate that, and could more have been done?
Yeah, so, you know, one of the things, I mean, here also, if you really look at one that, what comes first to my mind is the word trust. the trust on business, and I think that's a big thing. The Janavas Biswas
That's
bill.
what the FM said, trust first, scrutinize later, when she was speaking in the context of,
So that's a very big booster as far as the small, mid-sized companies are concerned, even large companies, of course. The second area is, if you see the type of sectors that one has covered in terms of ease of doing business, more of decriminalization. That again shows that the government is willing to do more in terms of making it easier to do business. It is also talked about an indexing of states in terms of which is friendlier in terms of investment destination. And it is also mentioned about that it will look at this entire gamut of regulatory framework and how to ease it. So a huge element of letting not just large but mid-sized and small businesses come in. If you really look at sectors also, if you really look at the sector like the toy sector, say for instance, sectors of those specific many other sectors which have been mentioned, which really triggers off not just investment by small companies and younger companies, but also it tremendously sort of bolsters employment. So both pretty well covered.
Do you sense, Mr. Banerjee, a little bit of a shift from the conventional? We would see huge announcements around infrastructure. So has there been a gradual shift, would you say, or some sort of experimenting, perhaps testing the waters that's being attempted by the government in giving more to the common man, increasing their spending power, giving more to businesses, innovators?
See, I see that in a way like, CapEx has been, government has done the heavy lifting post-COVID tremendously. But I don't see that it's been, completely out. I see the focus being much more qualitative. There is focus on rural, there is focus on digital infrastructure. There has also been, the state's participation, which was really critical and important. The 50-year loan-free, interest-free loan. That's an important, announcement that has come in. If you really look at again the capex which has been directed towards rural, these are all very critical, and through the consumption demand which spurs in private sector demand also brings in the prudence. It is shown also to balance with the fiscal prudence, but I think all of this will help crowd in the private sector investments. So private sector is not only getting an opportunity to bring in its investment because the opportunities would be more, but it is time for the private sector also to play what it has been said in the economic survey and has been emphasized, rather opportunities being put up in the budget for participation.
Also, I think the integration that we're going to see going forward with states is also a key aspect. Perhaps you've not seen so much of focus on this particular coordinated effort in the past budgets. Correct me if I'm wrong, but how do you see that playing out?
I think this government has focused a lot on cooperative federalism, comparative federalism earlier too. But what's happening now is the next set of work, reforms, infrastructure development, are all really with the states. The states need to play a part also in terms of exports, which was also there quite strongly mentioned in the budget. So the role of states is strong, and here the states would have to be folded in. They are being taken along. But then at the same time, they also need to understand that if they compete on areas, they would also end up being stronger in terms of not only generating employment in their state, but also being a very strong investment destination.
Thank you, Mr. Banerjee, for sharing your thoughts. Let's see how this plays out. A very interesting, positive budget overall indeed. Back to the studio.
For that, Christine, before we get in our expert comments here, there's some breaking news that's now coming in as far as relief for the salaried class, for the salaried taxpayer is concerned. Government sources are now telling us that over 85% of the personal income taxpayers are going to be benefiting from this announcement that has come to the fore in this budget. They are not going to be needing to pay any income tax under the new regime now. This, of course, is aimed in a big way at a majority of taxpayers in the country, most of whom earn below 12.75 lakh rupees. That is what is featured in this budget, keeping majority of the middle class in mind. This decision has been taken, and it's quite a leap from 7 to about 12 lakhs. That's the jump that has been made this time around in the revision of tax exemption. Aman, my colleague, joining us, getting us more perspective on that. Aman, what else have you gathered from your sources within the government?
See, Poonam, just to explain the scale of this move, the government which has done that till 12.75 lakh, if you earn a yearly income, you will not have to pay any income tax. 12 lakh plus 75,000 standard deduction. The figures that we have from the government, last assessment year figures available of assessment year 21-22, about 6.33 crore people had filed their income tax returns for personal income tax. Out of them, 5.5 crore people had an annual income of less than rupees 10 lakhs. So a majority of India has an annual income of less than rupees 10 lakhs when it comes to salaried people. In the current regime, if it goes up to 12.75 lakh as the government has now proposed in the union budget, nearly 85% of taxpayers in the country, the personal income taxpayers, will not have to pay any income tax. That is the scale of this move, and that is why the government is foregoing nearly rupees 1 lakh crore in annual revenue from income tax returns. Also, the government is saying that all these people, in fact, have to move to the new tax regime to get benefit of the same. And there is also increasing adoption of the new tax regime. The latest figures we have from the last assessment year is that nearly 72% people in the country, the personal income taxpayers, have already moved to the new tax regime. Only 28% people remain on the old tax regime. So the government is anticipating with this latest move of exempting people up to 12.75 lakh rupees a year's annual income, there will be bigger shift towards the new tax regime, because these people will not have to pay any income tax. So if all the people move to new income tax regime who are earning less than rupees 12.75 lakh a year, nearly 85% of India's taxpayers, personal income taxpayers, will not have to pay income tax. That is the big scale of this move. And as I said, government is foregoing nearly rupees 1 lakh crore on this particular move.
So big move there, but what happens to the old regime? Does that go out completely? That's another question that many are asking as well. We'll perhaps get answers to that when the new Income Tax Act does come in, when the bill is presented in the Parliament next week in this session. Aman, for the moment, thank you so much for getting us perspective on that. We have our guests joining us, getting us expert opinions about this particular budget. If this is the finance minister hitting the nail on its head, or was there elbow room to do more? Nikhil Chandna, partner at Grant Thornton Bharat, is joining us here. Manish Sharma, chair of FICCI Committee on Electronics and White Goods Manufacturing, chairman of Panasonic Life Solutions, is with us here as well. Kailash continues to be with us. Rajat Chopra is with us as well. Let me begin by asking Mr. Sharma, though, what's your first impression of the budget? Do you think enough has been done to boost confidence, to spur growth as we would have liked?
Yes, so three quick reflections. I think the first one, over last 5 to 6 years, I've noticed, and coming in from engineering background, I must say that the structured approach still continues, because if you're not able to measure anything, you can't monitor its progress. So 10 focus areas and a very structured approach. Second is a lot of strategic announcements, and in specific what will benefit the manufacturing industry. I think the announcement of National Manufacturing Mission, we need to look at the fine print and the details of how it is going to span out in the time to come. And second in particular, I was impressed with the announcement of Bharat TradeNet, wherein I think we experience, because electronics is something which cuts across various industries and applications, and the need is such that inter-ministerial, inter-industry body needs to be enabled, wherein the policy interventions can witness faster consensus and decision making. So if a commerce and a MSME and a revenue is coming together for this purpose, is a delight to look at. And tactically, I think a lot of announcements happened today, and in particular, the rationalization of tariff structures will definitely bring in a lot of ease. And I believe it will also let the industry measure of what is coming in consistently and what rate. And this will have a significant rub-off in the time to come. And as I said, rationalization of custom duties on interactive display panels. There was a intervention announced on open cell for televisions, which will improve the competitiveness of domestic manufacturing of televisions from now onwards.
So a lot of decisions have come to the fore, also keeping in mind the changing geopolitics, as was cautioned by the Chief Economic Advisor in the Economic Survey as well. But let me get in Mr. Chand now on this, because the biggest benefactor perhaps in the class that seems to be the happiest today is the salaried middle class. A big jump, a big leap coming in from exemption of 7 lakhs to straight away to 12 lakhs. But does this simplify life for people?
Yeah, so I think you rightly said, there's a biggest saving which has been given to the middle taxpayers, and we have to see how it will changes the life of the people. Just to give you a perspective, the kind of savings people will have. First of all, let me clarify. I think there's a lot of doubt on that if people have income of 15 lakhs, still this 12 lakh benefit is given to them. No. Then the benefit of the new slab rate will be something which people will have. However, if a people have income of 12 lakh plus 75,000, which is 12.75, then only they don't need to pay the taxes. And the saving, if you ask me, vis-a-vis the old vis-a-vis the new tax regime earlier and now, there's a substantial saving of 83,200, which is going in the hands of the people. I think that exactly give you a liquidity of almost 7,000 rupees per month, which people can spend. And I think yesterday with the economic survey being out, I think the biggest the worry is the liquidity crunch in the market and consumption, which this will increase. And if you ask me, now going to the next level to give a comparative analysis, if a people have an income of 15 lakh rupees, how much they will be able to save if they follow the new tax regime earlier and now, there's a saving of 32,500 rupees, which is obviously not as great as earning up to 12.75 lakh. But yeah, there's a saving. And then if a people have an income of 30 lakh rupees, where they have a 30% of because above 24 lakh there's a 30% tax rate which comes into the picture. The saving is substantial, is more than a lakh, which is 1,14,400 to be very precise. And just give you some statistics. Last year, 72% of the people follow the new tax regime. Now the government intent, because 2020 is the first time when the government came with this intent of pushing people from old tax regime to the new tax regime, looks like that they will achieve this big time now, because 90% of the people of the country, between 85% or 90% of the people of the country are below 12 lakh or 12 lakh 75,000 limit.
At
It's a
least
major
85%
impact.
of the country. That's what we're gathering. That's what the government estimates to do.
Yeah, so basis, because last year 7.2 crore people have filed. Even that will reduce the number of filing, because there's no need to file the return. Once you have this, because there's no taxable income. So I think it's a big move. Government has shown that bold decision, and people will have some kind of liquidity, and that will give more disposable income in the hands of the people.
But
and
I want to
impetus
quickly
to the
ask you this
growth.
just to sort of clear confusion, because a lot of our viewers have called in, and the confusion that they have is that we have the finance minister who said that up to 12 lakhs there is going to be no income tax at all, and then you have a set of revised slabs that have come in, and those slabs show 5% from 4 to 8 lakhs. Another increased from about 8 to 12 lakhs, which is 10%. So why is that there? That's a question that many of our viewers have called in and asked if you could address that.
Yeah, so I think I've given the comparison right now. That slab is rationalized, and further, the benefit has been given, and that for the people who have more than 12 lakhs. Because this rebate of 12 lakh is this rebate of 60,000 rupees is only for the people who have an income up to 12 lakhs.
Correct.
Or 12 lakhs 75,000, because they get a benefit of standard deduction as well. The moment they cross 12 lakhs, there is no rebate. Then they will fall under the slab, and they will get the benefit of this rationalized in the rates, the rates showing on your screen. That, and as I said, I give you a comparison, like for a person of 15 lakh income, he has to pay taxes of 97,500 rupees under the new tax regime now, which was 1,30,000 before. So there's a saving, but it's not as big as if you would have been earning a 12 lakh rupees. So this,
Sure.
I think brings clarity to your viewers.
Sure. Thank you so much for putting that in perspective for us. Kailash Adhikari, I know you've been patiently waiting, but I unfortunately have to take a quick break. I'll come back to you once we're back from that break. I request all our other panelists to stay on as well.
दर्शकगण, बजट के बाद राज्यपाल अभिभाषण में आपको पर्याप्त अवसर दूंगा। मेरा आपसे निवेदन है, नहीं माननीय अखिलेश जी, आपने संसद की मर्यादा को आप बना के रखें। कभी बजट भाषण के अंदर इस तरीके का नहीं हुआ, ये उचित नहीं है, ये उचित नहीं है। अखिलेश जी प्लीज, मैं आपको मौका दूंगा राज्यपाल अभिभाषण पे, प्लीज। नो, ये तरीका ठीक नहीं है। नो, राज्यपाल अभिभाषण पे चर्चा होगी। नो तरीका।
Honorable Speaker, I present the budget for 25-26. This budget continues our government's efforts to A. Accelerate growth, B. Secure inclusive development, C. Invigorate private sector investments, D. Uplift household sentiments, and E. Enhance spending power of India's rising middle class. Together, we embark on a journey to unlock our nation's tremendous potential for greater prosperity and global positioning under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. As we complete the first quarter of the 21st century, continuing geopolitical headwinds suggest lower global economic growth over the medium term. However, our aspiration for a Vikasit Bharat inspires us, and the transformative work we have done during our government's first 2 terms guides us to march forward resolutely. Our economy is the fastest growing among all major economies. Our development track record for the past 10 years and structural reforms have drawn global attention. Confidence in India's capability and potential has only grown in this period. We see the next 5 years as a unique opportunity to realize Sabka Vikas, stimulating balanced growth of all regions. The great Telugu poet and playwright Gurujada Apparao had said, Deshamante matti kadoy, Deshamante manushuloy, meaning a country is not just its soil, a country is its people. In line with this, for us, Vikasit Bharat encompasses zero poverty, 100% quality good school education, access to high quality, affordable and comprehensive health care, 100% skilled labor with meaningful employment, 70% women in economic activities, and farmers making our country the food basket of the world. In this budget, the proposed development measures span 10 broad areas focusing on Garib, youth, Annadata and Nari, spurring agricultural growth and productivity, building rural prosperity and resilience, taking everyone together on an
Thank you for staying with us here on our non-stop coverage of Union Budget 2025. The Finance Minister presented it a short while ago. Kailash Adhikari and Rajat Chopra continue to be with us on this broadcast. Kailash Adhikari, I thank you for your patience and I apologize for not having come to you sooner. But as far as sending out the message and the optics of this are concerned, do you think the Finance Minister and the central government have ticked the right boxes? The Aam Aadmi has been placated, a big tax revision as far as exemptions go. Bihar, which is a poll-bound state, has got a big share and several special mentions across the budget. Several other educational institutions, artificial intelligence, that's also got a boost as well.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. You know, this budget was aimed at boosting the consumption. and consumption fuels growth. I mean, if a salaried middle class or anyone, any citizen who's a tax-paying citizen, if he has more disposable income at hand, which even Sir was saying, when he answered your question first, naturally that boosts consumption. He or she has the impetus to spend more, and that fuels growth. Somewhere we live in an economy all around the globe, which is a 360-degree economy. When a spending happens in a particular domain, that leads to more indirect taxation, that leads to income for someone else, that leads to income tax for that corporation who has given that kind of good. So this is how the economy is fueled. Apart from that, that I believe is the crux. From there everything stems. As you rightly mentioned about education, about 20,000 crores have been allocated. IITs have been given a push. We've seen that so many IITs were promised in certain areas, in certain tier 2, tier 3 towns, which the finance minister has promised that they'll be completed, and more new IITs will be coming up, and there certain infrastructure push will happen. Apart from that, tourism as a sector, in order to grow that sector, because that leads to your foreign exchange earnings, about 20,000 crores have been earmarked for that. Apart from that, a very interesting point that the finance minister made out was of the Udan scheme.
Yes.
So many, as far as more than 80 small ports and airports were connected, because of which she mentioned that 1.5 crore middle class individuals were able to travel in a speedy manner. Now the target is to open more such airports in 120 areas, especially your hilly airports which are in the northeast, so that they are connected and people are able to travel there. And this will benefit about the fact that 4 crore people should be traveling. That is the aim. So push to the Udan scheme, wherein see, it's very simple. If an airport is getting built and infrastructure is getting built, that leads to employment, that leads to the ancillary sectors that also get the boost. Apart from that, the 5 lakh announcement made by Honorable Finance Minister for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe women, that is a kind of help. So naturally, this is, as we rightly call it, a budget for the Viksit Bharat. And naturally, I would call it not just the cherry, but the entire icing on the cake is the fact that up to 12 lakhs, if your income is up to 12.5 lakhs, then you pay no tax. If your income goes above that, then the new tax regime, in which also savings are there.
Correct. So now the choice, of course, is to whether to shift to the new regime altogether, or if the government is going to nudge you to do that. Because Kailash Adhikari, there have been hints for a long time now that the government is going to do away with the old tax regime altogether. Is that something that could happen when the new income tax bill is brought in?
I believe so. And it is not just about, because a dual tax regime, naturally that was creating complexity and confusion in the minds of the taxpayers, whether to go with the old or the new. One simplified tax regime, naturally that is the crux, the entire idea of it. And apart from that, the finance minister has also said that in the new direct tax code that will come, it will be more based on trust-based regulations. There are certain corporations, there are certain individuals, or there are certain MSMEs, entrepreneurs, where a lot of time, money and effort goes into smaller regulation or regulatory effort. If that entire shift is made towards the fact that it is a trust-based regulation, we trust you, that also instills a lot of confidence amongst the entrepreneurs and the MSMEs, who believe that, no, if the government is entrusting us to do so, then naturally we must follow. There is a direct effect to it. And naturally, this entire scheme and simplifying tax procedures, simplifying the filing, will encourage more and more people to file income tax return as well.
Rajat Chopra, do you agree? Because ease of business is something that this government has spoken of at length every single time the budget has been presented, and of course outside of it as well. But are these things easier said than done?
I think, Poonam, I would still disagree with that ease of business, the way we want it to be, or the way we envisage it to be, I think more than a lip servicing, it's the reality is far different from what is happening. Why? Because the ease of doing business, yes, we've been talking about various initiatives by the government, and I agree Modi government has taken a lot of initiatives for ease of business, ease of capital availability for the MSMEs. But at the same time, how the execution is being done, how the processes are being defined, how the tax are being defined, and how that real benefit is being passed on to the real beneficiary, I think that depends a lot. And the reality and numbers is far different from that. And if we talk about startup funding, if we talk about MSME funding, if we talk about CGTSME scheme or any other 19 schemes that Modi government has launched, I think the real beneficiaries are still very less in number in terms of taking those benefits. And even the timelines for those kind of benefits coming to them is far higher than anticipated. So I think it's a time that we should relook at the process more rather than the schemes. We should relook at the execution approach more rather than the schemes and the orientation, and we should look at the governance more.
Sure, but maybe this is the first step in the right direction. We have allocations and
very
schemes that have been
welcome step,
announced.
yeah.
Now the focus should be on implementation. I request both of you gentlemen to stay on with us. Zaka Jacob joins us as well.
All right, I want to go across to two very special guests who are joining us. Mr. Ashish Chauhan is the MD and CEO of the National Stock Exchange of India, and I'm also joined by Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, who is the chairperson of Biocon. Thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Chauhan, let me start with you first. When the budget speech was being made and right after that, the markets were reacting a bit negatively, but I believe now they're also in the positive. What are the big takeaways as far as you're concerned in this budget?
For me, there are three frameworks which this budget has tried to balance. One is the fiscal deficit, which we all watch very carefully. That shows government's resolve to control its expenditure vis-a-vis its income. Budget deficit, the fiscal deficit is now going from 4.9% estimated to 4.8% for the current year, and next year 4.4%. That's I think a great achievement for any government. The second part was keeping more money in the hands of the middle class by giving them tax break up to 12.75 lakh per annum, where you don't have to pay any tax if you are a salaried employee. And that is basically keeping a lot of money in the hands of the families and the individuals. And third is keeping the infrastructure momentum continue. This year, government has not been able to spend as much as they had promised during the last budget, but still they will, I think, go up to 10.2 lakh crore this year, and next year they have capped the target at 11.2 lakh crore. So overall, I think these three components have been well managed, and all three of them are going to increase in some ways together the growth momentum going forward.
All right, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the Prime Minister is speaking. Let's go straight across.
140 करोड़ भारतीयों की आकांक्षाओं का बजट है। ये हर भारतीय के सपनों को पूरा करने वाला बजट है। हमने कई सेक्टर्स युवाओं के लिए खोल दिए हैं। सामान्य नागरिक विकसित भारत के मिशन को ड्राइव करने वाला है। ये बजट एक फोर्स मल्टीप्लायर है। ये बजट सेविंग्स को बढ़ाएगा, इन्वेस्टमेंट को बढ़ाएगा, कंजम्पशन को बढ़ाएगा और ग्रोथ को भी तेजी से बढ़ाएगा। मैं वित्त मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमण जी और उनकी पूरी टीम को इस जनता जनार्दन का बजट, पीपल्स का बजट, इसके लिए बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। साथियों, आमतौर पर बजट का फोकस इस बात पर रहता है कि सरकार का खजाना कैसे भरेगा, लेकिन ये बजट उससे बिल्कुल उल्टा है। लेकिन ये बजट देश के नागरिकों की जेब कैसे भरेगी, देश के नागरिकों की बचत कैसे बढ़ेगी और देश के नागरिक विकास के भागीदार कैसे बनेंगे, ये बजट इसकी एक बहुत मजबूत नींव रखता है। साथियों, इस बजट में रिफॉर्म की दिशा में महत्वपूर्ण कदम उठाए गए हैं। न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी में प्राइवेट सेक्टर को बढ़ावा देने का निर्णय बहुत ही ऐतिहासिक है। ये आने वाले समय में सिविल न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी का बड़ा योगदान देश के विकास में सुनिश्चित करेगा। बजट में रोजगार के सभी क्षेत्रों को हर प्रकार से प्राथमिकता दी गई है। लेकिन मैं दो चीजों पर ध्यान आकर्षित करना चाहूंगा, उन रिफॉर्म्स की मैं चर्चा करना चाहूंगा जो आने वाले समय में बहुत बड़ा परिवर्तन लाने वाले हैं। एक, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर स्टेटस देने के कारण भारत में बड़े शिप्स के निर्माण को बढ़ावा मिलेगा, आत्मनिर्भर भारत अभियान को गति मिलेगी। और हम सब जानते हैं कि शिप बिल्डिंग ये सर्वाधिक रोजगार देने वाला क्षेत्र है। उसी प्रकार से देश में टूरिज्म के लिए बहुत संभावना है। महत्वपूर्ण 50 टूरिस्ट डेस्टिनेशन, वहां पर जो होटल्स बनाएंगे, उस होटल को पहली बार इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के दायरे में लाकर टूरिज्म पर बहुत बल दिया है। इससे हॉस्पिटैलिटी सेक्टर को, जो रोजगार का बहुत बड़ा क्षेत्र है, और टूरिज्म जो रोजगार का सबसे बड़ा क्षेत्र है, एक प्रकार से चारों तरफ रोजगार के अवसर पैदा करने वाला एक क्षेत्र को ऊर्जा देने वाला काम करेगा। आज देश विकास भी, विरासत भी इस मंत्र को लेकर चल रहा है। इस बजट में भी इसके लिए भी बहुत महत्वपूर्ण और ठोस कदम उठाए गए हैं। 1 करोड़ पांडुलिपियों के लिए संरक्षण के लिए, मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट के लिए ज्ञान भारतम मिशन लॉन्च किया गया है। साथ ही भारतीय ज्ञान परंपरा से प्रेरित एक नेशनल डिजिटल रिपोजिटरी बनाई जाएगी। यानी टेक्नोलॉजी का भरपूर उपयोग किया जाएगा और हमारा जो परंपरागत ज्ञान है उसमें से अमृत निचोड़ने का भी काम होगा। साथियों, बजट में किसानों के लिए जो घोषणा हुई है वो कृषि क्षेत्र और समूची ग्रामीण अर्थव्यवस्था में नई क्रांति का आधार बनेगी। पीएम धन धान्य कृषि योजना के तहत 100 जिलों में सिंचाई और इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का डेवलपमेंट होगा। किसान क्रेडिट कार्ड की लिमिट 5 लाख तक होने से उन्हें ज्यादा मदद मिलेगी। साथियों, अब इस बजट में 12 लाख रुपए तक की आय को टैक्स से मुक्त कर दिया गया है। सभी आय वर्ग के लोगों के लिए टैक्स में भी कमी की गई है। इसका बहुत बड़ा फायदा हमारे मिडिल क्लास को, नौकरी पेशे करने वाले जिनकी आय बंधी हुई है, ऐसे लोगों को, मिडिल क्लास को इससे बहुत बड़ा लाभ होने वाला है। उसी प्रकार से जो नए नए प्रोफेशन में आए हैं, जिनको नए नए जॉब मिले हैं, इनकम टैक्स की ये मुक्ति उनके लिए एक बहुत बड़ा अवसर बन जाएगी। साथियों, इस बजट में मैन्युफैक्चरिंग पर 360 डिग्री फोकस है ताकि एंटरप्रेन्योर्स को, एमएसएमईज को, छोटे उद्यमियों को मजबूती मिले और नई जॉब पैदा हो। नेशनल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग मिशन से लेकर क्लीन टेक, लेदर, फुटवियर, टॉय इंडस्ट्री जैसे अनेक सेक्टर्स को विशेष समर्थन दिया गया है। लक्ष्य साफ है कि भारतीय प्रोडक्ट्स ग्लोबल मार्केट में अपनी चमक बिखेर सके। साथियों, राज्यों में इन्वेस्टमेंट का एक वाइब्रेंट कॉम्पिटिटिव माहौल बने, इस पर बजट में विशेष जोर दिया गया है। एमएसएमईज और स्टार्टअप के लिए क्रेडिट गारंटी को दोगुना करने की घोषणा भी हुई है। देश के एससी, एसटी और महिला जो नए उद्यमी बनना चाहते हैं, उनको 2 करोड़ रुपए तक के लोन की योजना भी लाई गई है, और वो भी बिना गारंटी। इस बजट में न्यू एज इकोनॉमी को ध्यान में रखते हुए गीग वर्कर्स के लिए बहुत बड़ी घोषणा की गई है। पहली बार गीग वर्कर्स का ई श्रम पोर्टल पर रजिस्ट्रेशन किया जाएगा। इसके बाद इन साथियों को स्वास्थ्य सेवा और दूसरी सोशल सिक्योरिटी स्कीम्स का लाभ मिलेगा। ये डिग्निटी ऑफ लेबर, इसके प्रति, श्रम एव जयते के प्रति सरकार के कमिटमेंट को दर्शाता है। रेगुलेटरी रिफॉर्म से लेकर फाइनेंशियल रिफॉर्म्स, जन विश्वास 2.0 जैसे कदमों से मिनिमम गवर्नमेंट और ट्रस्ट बेस्ड गवर्नेंस के हमारे कमिटमेंट को और बल मिलेगा। साथियों, ये बजट न केवल देश की वर्तमान आवश्यकताओं को ध्यान में रखता है, बल्कि हमें भविष्य की तैयारी करने में भी मदद करता है। स्टार्टअप के लिए डीप टेक फंड, जियोस्पेशल मिशन और न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी मिशन ऐसे ही महत्वपूर्ण कदम है। मैं सभी देशवासियों को एक बार फिर इस ऐतिहासिक पीपल्स बजट की बधाई देता हूं, और फिर एक बार वित्त मंत्री जी को भी बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
The Prime Minister there outlining his government's vision, lauding the Finance Minister and her entire team for what he calls is the people's budget. And there is no doubt that the middle class is the happiest lot today as far as Union Budget 2025 is concerned. There are a lot of pluses in other sectors as well. Research and innovation is something that has got a big boost. India's space tech also getting a big boost with a higher allocation this time around. Education is something that this government has focused on. Yuva, Mahila, Kisan, that has been the focus for this government as far as this budget particularly is concerned. Rajat Chopra continues to be with us on this broadcast, getting us more perspective. Rajat Chopra, as far as MSMEs is concerned, there could have been more that could have been done, is what many believe. You are also of the opinion that maybe there was a little more elbow room for her to maneuver around and try and give some more. But is that something that we could look at as an offsetting factor since she's given everything else so much more?
I think Poonam, I completely agree with that, and there's a lot of room and a lot of improvisation scope still is there. If we see the sectoral scope focus, I think the mining, agriculture, tourism, medical tourism, research, all these have been the key focus for the budget. And Nirmala Sitharaman, the finance minister, has covered the holistic package of providing this kind of boost to these sectors, and especially the tourism sector after getting included into the infrastructure. I think, but there's always a room, and again I would say, that the key is the execution. I personally feel that the execution will make these schemes flourish, the sector flourish, the business, and flourish the economy to a larger extent. I would not discourage the point that the package is not being provided. The package is provided, the package has always been provided. I think the government has done their job, but the scope of improvement is there. In many states, like Bihar focus, I think there could have been more states that could have been part and parcel in some form, in terms of job creation.
And that's the criticism of many within the opposition as well. Rajat Chopra, sorry to interrupt you there, but Rahul Shivshankar joins us on this broadcast as well.
Thanks indeed. Let's go straight across, viewers, to Mr. N.K. Singh. He needs no introduction, has been a long-standing distinguished economist, has been with the Planning Commission and has been in different roles. Holding forth on economic policy for decades altogether. Mr. Singh, thank you very much for speaking to me. The budget was presented today on the back of what the EAC said was the need to not allow business as usual to continue. Now, has the FM, in your opinion, adhered to his advice?
She perhaps has taken her own advice. She doesn't need the advice because the writings were quite obvious. The challenges were very evident. The challenges were both international and national. So from that point of view, this is not an incremental budget. I would certainly say this is, in more ways than one, a transformative budget. It is transformative, in my view, from 3 points of view. First, from the viewpoint of fundamental changes in the structure of our taxation. I think, Rahul, you know that I was involved in earlier tax reforms when we introduced the so-called tax slabs. But this budget has gone a step further in giving a very, very significant tax break at all levels of tax slabs. And more important, Rahul, it has done so without in any way compromising with the path and the glide path of fiscal deficit and debt management. Adherence to the target of 4.4, 4.5, along with a debt to GDP target of around 51% in the terminal year, a significant downward spiral in the debt to GDP, consistent with this kind of a tax reforms which has parted with over 1 lakh of crores, is in my view a very creditable achievement. So that point of view, this budget is not incremental, it is transformative. Two other factors, and I will stop there. One is it has been multifaceted and it has been across the board and across the spectrum, significantly affected all segments of our economy. Illustratively, India is committed to the adherence of the nationally determined net zero target, which the Prime Minister in many ways authored, the so-called Paris Pact. The changes which have been brought about and how to harness renewable energy or nuclear power. I mean, you know, Rahul, you remember, everybody, when Dr. Manmohan Singh passed away, paid him well-deserved tributes that he had authored, the famous Indo-US nuclear agreement, but we could not harness the advantage. We will now harness its advantage by the changes which have been announced and those in the offing, being able to harness nuclear power, which, by the way, and that's related to my third point, that if India wants to be at the cutting edge of AI, that cutting edge requires a huge energy consumption. From where is the energy to be met? And I think that is now a credible answer that modular nuclear powers and harnessing the atomic energy, which is a renewable form of energy, would be a path forward. Finally, I would say agriculture, skill development, and being able to combine the advantages of a change in agricultural habits, genuinely moving towards environmentally more sustainable crops while making it more nutritious, in terms of becoming self-sufficient in pulses, in self-sufficient and encouraging the use of fisheries, of fruits and vegetables in consonance with the changing consumer patterns and the need for nutrition. It has addressed various segments, and the fillip which it has given to MSEB, being an important provider of job and a contributor to GDP. So if you look at the whole multifaceted areas which this budget has in many ways, I would say that this is certainly by no means an incremental budget, which were many past budgets, not necessarily of Nirmala, have been, but this, in my view, is a transformative budget, looking at the far-reaching implications it has in boosting consumer preference, in boosting the availability of resources to expand private consumption, agriculture, urban development, in consonance with the changing needs of what technology has to offer.
Okay, that's an interesting point of view because, as you know, the market reaction has been less than appreciative, just to put it politely. But deregulation is the need of the hour, given the various headwinds, the desensitization really of cross-border trade and the movement of people, goods and services that we're expected to encounter in a MAGA world, in a Trump world or a mega world, European Union that wants to become great again and so on and so forth. Now, deregulation was something that was stressed upon even by the EAC. Where is that in this budget? There is no roadmap for it, some people argue.
Let me put it this way to you. I gave an example of on the atomic stuff. Isn't that deregulation? She has promised a high-level committee to look into how to simplify rules and regulations and to come up with recommendations which are credible. That's a credible effort in trying to find out the further areas where deregulation, 100% insurance being permitted. Isn't that deregulation as part of being able to attract greater direct foreign investment? If you look at the other areas of being able to attract direct foreign investment, those are all part of a deregulation process. I'm sure that what the chief economic advisor had hinted are some of these things, many of which have been addressed. Look at the whole direct tax code, which is in the offing and whose bill will be introduced next week. Isn't that deregulation? Yeah. Simplifying the entire taxation structure. She has hinted at not only on direct taxes, but some hints on what needs to be done on indirect taxes. The number of simplification which has taken place in the area of customs, the number of compliances which have been called off, isn't that simplification? Those are the kinds of changes which the CA would have had in mind when he talked and mentioned about the need for deregulation to be an important catalyst for growth and for change.
Lastly, Mr. N.K. Singh, many people said that, look, we have to grow now year on year, 8% plus, if we are to become truly Viksit by 2047. Is this budget going to put us on that track, the 8% plus track?
Let me put it this way to you. If you look at the fact that the IMF says that by certainly we will become not only a $5 trillion economy, but by 2030 a $6.1 trillion economy. That implies that in nominal terms in US dollar, we would have grown in recent years at nominal terms at 10% already. So the compounded value of 10%, if you bump it up by 1 or 2 more percentage points, some of which are really embedded in many of these things which I have mentioned, the fact of adhering to the path of fiscal consolidation, I believe, Rahul, that this adherence and a credible debt plan will be an important factor in permitting rating agencies for a further upgrade of India's credit standing, which in my view was due long ago, but is more of a reality now than ever before. I believe that looking at the constellation of factors, I certainly think that the figures which have been given in the budget of the growth next year will certainly, we will be surprised on the upside of it if all the factors which have been outlined in the budget, the initiatives which have begun are really going to see the fruition. One of the factors which you must have noticed, Rahul, that Nirmala has been one of those rare finance ministers who has always under-promised and overperformed.
Right.
Time after time on many parameters. This has been her track record. And I'm therefore sanguine that we are well on course to meet our quest to become a Viksit Bharat by 2047.
Well, Mr. N.K. Singh, thank you very much for sparing this time and being with us and giving your valuable insight. Viewers, that conversation hopefully will go some way in allaying fears that perhaps the budget has been too conservative. I'll now go straight across to Ayushman, my colleague who joins us. to take us forward in this rolling broadcast. Ayushman.
Thank you for that, Rahul. So clearly a huge booster when it comes to the middle class, when it comes to the tax reform that has been pushed forward by the finance minister. Also a huge impetus on regional growth, primarily to the state of Bihar as well. This also coming in right ahead of the elections in the state of Bihar. So a lot of push and pull coming in between the opposition as well as the ruling NDA regime. But Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented this union budget in Parliament today. The budget comes with a huge boost, as I was pointing out, for the middle class, with income tax payment exempted up to 12 lakhs income per year. The step will provide a major relief for the middle class, which will be left with a lot more money in hand, and that's something that was a huge criticism coming in from several sections in the middle class. TCS threshold has also been raised from 7 lakh to 10 lakh in a push for education. 3 centers of excellence for artificial intelligence will be established. The capacity of IITs and medical colleges will also be expanded, is the push coming in from the NDA government. Meanwhile, the union budget comes with major allocations, as I was pointing out, for poll-bound Bihar. Finance Minister Sitharaman announced that a Makhna board will be established for Bihar and training support will be provided for Makhna farmers. The budget also aims to boost infrastructure capacity in Bihar and facilitate the establishment of greenfield airports. We've seen that kind of push coming in from the NDA government in several states across the country, primarily those states which need an infrastructure revamp. Financial support for the Western Kosi Canal project has also been announced that is expected to benefit farmers of the Mithilanchal region. So that is something that the government is pushing towards the entire infrastructure revamp across the country, primarily when it comes to eastern India, especially the state of Bihar.
Personal income tax reforms with special focus on middle class. Democracy, demography, and demand are the key support pillars in our journey towards Vikasit Bharat. The middle class provides strength for India's growth. This government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, has always believed in the admirable energy and ability of the middle class in nation building. In recognition of their contribution, we have periodically reduced their tax burden. Right after 2014, the nil tax slab was raised to 2.5 lakhs of rupees, which was further raised to 5 lakh rupees in 2019 and to 7 lakh rupees in 2023. This is reflective of our government's trust on the middle class taxpayers. I am now happy to announce that there will be no income tax payable up to income of 12 lakh rupees.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is the push coming in from the finance minister when it comes to the infrastructure revamp across the country, primarily the middle class also breathing a sigh of relief when it comes to the tax exemption for 12 lakhs per year. But also, as we were pointing out, a huge infrastructure booster for the state of Bihar, which is headed towards the elections. This has led to a lot of push and pull between the NDA government as well as the opposition. Opposition claiming that the NDA government has made a lot of political calculations behind the budget. But at the same time, the middle class breathing a sigh of relief, but at the same time, a lot of booster coming in, not just for the MSME sector, but also a lot of relief for the farming sector as well. The government also laying out a lot of infrastructure projects when it comes to revamping and boosting the farmer sector as well as the MSME sector across the country. So that is the big takeaway coming in when it comes to the entire situation pushed out by the NDA government through Budget 2025. Right. I'm also joined by Piyush Doshi on the broadcast, operating partner, Foundation for Economic Development. Thank you, sir, for joining us on the broadcast. When it comes to this tax exemption of up to 12 lakhs per year for the middle class, it's a huge booster for them. One of the big criticisms against the Modi government was that there's not much spending power left with the inflationary pressure on the middle class as well. Do you see this as an essential move coming in from the Modi government, or more was expected when it comes to boosting the spending power of the middle class?
I think this is almost as much as you could have expected under the current fiscal scenario. The government rightly wanted to stick to its fiscal deficit target. In that situation, if they have allocated almost 1 lakh crore towards giving relief to middle class taxpayer, I think that is almost bigger than what one would have expected. And I think it is definitely a big relief to almost 2 crore taxpayer who will probably fall in that bracket.
Also, we're joined by S. Vasudevan, Executive Partner, LNS Attorneys. Thank you, sir, for joining us on the broadcast. When it comes to this entire infrastructure push that's gone towards the state of Bihar, one big takeaway that's coming in from a lot of experts is that while there is a political calculation behind boosting the state of Bihar, rebooting the economic engine of Bihar is also something essential for the development of the overall economic situation in eastern India. How do you see that?
No, I think that's quite understandable because ultimately you want to give boost to states probably which are lagging behind and which are not doing that well. So lot of focus has been there on UP in the past. We have seen they are trying to make it more attractive for investment, which is not very easy for businesses to look beyond the already attractive states like Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Telangana. So definitely they need more for getting the businesses interested in states like UP and Bihar. So that's quite understandable. And plus, no doubt, the election which is coming up is also a major reason for it.
Right. Mr. Doshi, I want to talk to you about the agriculture sector. Now, many times a lot of political parties, especially in the budget, they lay out a lot of welfare sops for the agriculture sector, saying it's essential to empower farmers across the country. But the question always remains that in 2025, looking at how the agriculture sector is market competitive in so many other countries, do you think that we are still not moving in that direction when it comes to creating a very market competitive agriculture sector?
Yeah, I think you are right. We have been giving SOPs for the agriculture sector, which add to the subsidies. There are schemes. And to be honest, these schemes are helping. The sector has been growing at about 2 to 3% per year. That is probably the maximum the sector can grow at, per se, from a production perspective. Where the opportunity is to boost exports through fruit processing. And I think for that to happen, we need to change the fundamental incentives of our farmers. Now, given the complexities around MSPs and so on, our farmers are actually incentivized to produce crops which are not necessarily what is needed in the international market. We need to reform supply chains by having reliable products now. Because of farm fragmentation and rules which prevent large companies to take over areas of land and do cropping which can be relied in the international market. I think that's where our problem is. Our agriculture is not export competitive and government has, to be fair, tried to do the farm laws. For whatever reason, it could not go through, and I think that was a big setback. Now, once you take those big reforms out, government is doing what it can at its capacity, but it can only deliver 2 to 3%, and hence we do need to look beyond agriculture for delivering the growth that we need.
It continues to be a huge burden on the exchequer as well, even now, given the SOPs that are pushed out ahead of every election cycle. Mr. Vasudevan, I want to talk to you about the MSME sector. We currently live in a huge boom of the gig economy, the MSME sector opening up to a lot of entrepreneurs, not just in rural India, but especially in urban India also. A lot of people also opening themselves up to MSME businesses in the gig economy. Do you think that the government is tapping the technological advancements when it comes to economic growth as well as the boost in social media and technology? Are they taking advantage of reaping the benefits of the MSME sector that we are seeing across the country?
No, I think MSME is very, very critical because when we are looking at growth, employment generation is definitely a very critical part of it. There won't be any benefit of the growth unless and until it percolates to the common people. And MSME has been the sort of backbone when it comes to employment generation, and also when it comes to exports. So also we must keep in mind what was talked about in the economic survey yesterday, that how AI is going to
Mr.
come
Vasudevan, I'm sorry to interrupt. We're also joined by Congress MP Shashi Tharoor. Tossing over to my colleague Zaka.
All right, so while the middle class and folks from the government are calling this a revolutionary budget, the opposition is saying it's been a damn squib. Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Member of Parliament from Thiruvananthapuram, is now joining us. Dr. Tharoor, the middle class is raving about the tax exemption being raised from 7 lakhs to 12 lakhs. The government saying about 80% of taxpayers will be benefited by this. Why does the opposition not buy into it?
Look, first of all, it helps
The people who actually have jobs and who have salaries under 12 lakhs, they'll be paying fewer taxes. But it does nothing to address the fact that the large chunk of the middle class doesn't have jobs. As unemployment is rampant, we have the highest youth unemployment in the world at the moment, and even college-educated unemployment is at record levels. The last budget, you may remember, the government announced employment-linked incentive schemes. They simply slashed the budgets that they announced last time from 10,000 crores down to 6,000 and change, and they didn't deliver any of the job opportunities that they promised then. So the problem is that we are looking at a situation where, yes, if you've got jobs, if you're one of the lucky few, you'll be fine. If you don't have a job, the government is not doing enough to get you any, and that's very worrying. So it's great that you have these headlines for the Delhi and Bihar elections, that you've given relief for income tax. But how you're going to actually give a stimulus to the economy, other than for these people to get a little bit of extra money in their pocket, is far from clear. And a lot of the other promises have turned out to be somewhat underwhelming.
But tell me this, one of the criticisms of the Modi government, particularly in the last 6 months or so since the general election last year, has been that the middle class is hurting. The middle class votes for the BJP, but they get nothing in return. Now that concern has been heeded to.
Yes, but that's not the entire middle class. That's there are people still in the middle class who earn more than 12 lakhs. There are people still in the middle class who are still looking for jobs, who've got college degrees and haven't been able to make a decent salary. And at the same time, I am really, really worried as to whether the next week's income tax bill she's mentioned is coming might have some fine print that will even undo the benefit of this. Because we'll have to reevaluate all our strategies once we get the fine print in the income tax bill. For example, will traditional deductions change? Will they become less relevant? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see that. So there's always a little catch with some of these goodies the government likes to dangle before us. So I think we should wait for a week to be entirely sure that even this one is worth celebrating.
Do you reckon, and I think in the last year's speech she had mentioned that we'll eventually move to the new regime and the old regime will be phased out. So things like, interest deductions on home loans, or things like, interest deductions on Provident Fund or other ATC deductions, eventually, the clamor has been for make the tax code simple, make the slabs and the rates simple, and the government seems to be moving in that direction.
Let's hope so. If that comes, that's something we can certainly look forward to, because the more confusing laws are, the less a benefit the ordinary citizen has from them, because you can't figure out what exactly you can benefit from and not. But I'm always worried about the fine print with this government. You remember that this year she's talked about grand ambitions to make India a global hub for toys. And the footwear and leather sector was promised a focus product scheme, big bold words and promises. When you look at the PLI scheme for the last budget, when they actually announced PLIs, and I've got the list in front of me, there were schemes like 6,200 crores for large-scale electronics and IT hardware. You know what they gave toys? 0.01 crore. Footwear and leather sector, 0.01 crore. Suddenly, these are the big-ticket items. God knows what other disappointments await us. I think when the chief economic advisor, no less, writes in the economic survey about the trust deficit, you can see why. Manrega hasn't gone up at all in this entire time, whereas the Rural Development Ministry has a 4,315 crore shortfall for Manrega wages. There are women in my constituency waiting 7 and 8 months to get their dues for work they've already done, and the government continues stuck there. They haven't actually changed even the allocation for this year is lower than 2022-23 spending. So demand is rising. People in the rural areas are desperately looking for work. I think last year was 82.4 million people looking for work. And if you can't give them work, you won't raise the budget, and you'll come up with new grand schemes where you've got no performance record to prove it, as I pointed out with toys and leather. Then I think we've got some real doubts in our minds.
I want one final comment from you. So you're saying it's a damn squib, it misses the big picture. What would have been the one big ticket reform that you would have liked to see in this budget, which you think the government missed out on?
Well, two things. One would have been, of course, something very directly benefiting employment, especially given the flop show of last year's employment-linked incentives. Nothing came there. The second is give us some hope that the investment climate will change. There was nothing. Investment in our country is stagnant. FDI is pulling out of our country in droves, and on top of that, domestic investment isn't coming in. So the question is, this is a country where $23,000 millionaires migrated last year out of India and became NRIs. What do we do to keep them here and keep them spending their money here and employing Indians?
All right.
Nothing at all. The finance minister didn't mention the word unemployment, didn't give any meaningful signal on investment. And this worries me. These are the two big things that we have to worry about. Already you've got a government that sadly is being rightly criticized for tax terrorism, the weaponization of the tax agencies and the ED and so on. On top of that, if people are fleeing and you're not keeping them here to invest here,
all right.
I wonder where you're going to get the growth from, without which all of this is a pipe dream.
All right, Dr. Shashi Tharoor, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us here on CNN News 18. We'll take a quick break, but news and updates continue right on the other side.
सदस्यगण, बजट के बाद राज्यपाल अभिभाषण में आपको पर्याप्त अवसर दूंगा। मेरा आपसे निवेदन है, नहीं माननीय अखिलेश जी, आपने संसद की मर्यादा को आप बना के रखें। कभी बजट भाषण के अंदर इस तरीके का नहीं हुआ, ये उचित नहीं है, ये उचित नहीं है। अखिलेश जी प्लीज, मैं आपको मौका दूंगा राज्यपाल अभिभाषण पे, प्लीज। नो, ये तरीका ठीक नहीं है। नो, राज्यपाल अभिभाषण पे चर्चा होगी। नो तरीका।
Honorable Speaker, I present the budget for 25-26. This budget continues our government's efforts to A. Accelerate growth, B. Secure inclusive development, C. Invigorate private sector investments, D. Uplift household sentiments, and E. Enhance spending power of India's rising middle class. Together, we embark on a journey to unlock our nation's tremendous potential for greater prosperity and global positioning under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. As we complete the first quarter of the 21st century, continuing geopolitical headwinds suggest lower global economic growth over the medium term. However, our aspiration for a Vikasit Bharat inspires us, and the transformative work we have done during our government's first 2 terms guides us to march forward resolutely. Our economy is the fastest growing among all major economies. Our development track record for the past 10 years and structural reforms have drawn global attention. Confidence in India's capability and potential has only grown in this period. We see the next 5 years as a unique opportunity to realize Sabka Vikas, stimulating balanced growth of all regions. The great Telugu poet and playwright Gurujada Apparao had said, "Deshamante matti kadoy, deshamante manushuloy," meaning a country is not just its
And welcome back to our rolling coverage of Budget 2025. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman laying out the game plan to achieve the 5 trillion economy mark, saying that more spending power has to be given to the middle class, raising the threshold level for income tax to 12 lakh rupees when it comes to tax exemptions. Also announcing a major economic and infrastructure booster for the state of Bihar, as well as a booster for the agriculture sector and MSMEs. First, listen in to Nirmala Sitharaman and then the message to the nation from Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Personal income tax reforms with special focus on middle class. Democracy, demography, and demand are the key support pillars in our journey towards Vikasit Bharat. The middle class provides strength for India's growth. This government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, has always believed in the admirable energy and ability of the middle class in nation building. In recognition of their contribution, we have periodically reduced their tax burden. Right after 2014, the nil tax slab was raised to 2.5 lakhs of rupees, which was further raised to 5 lakh rupees in 2019 and to 7 lakh rupees in 2023. This is reflective of our government's trust on the middle class taxpayers. I am now happy to announce that there will be no income tax payable up to income of 12 lakh rupees.
ये बजट एक फोर्स मल्टीप्लायर है। ये बजट सेविंग्स को बढ़ाएगा, इन्वेस्टमेंट को बढ़ाएगा, कंजम्पशन को बढ़ाएगा और ग्रोथ को भी तेजी से बढ़ाएगा। मैं वित्त मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमण जी और उनकी पूरी टीम को इस जनता जनार्दन का बजट, पीपल्स का बजट, इसके लिए बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। ये बजट देश के नागरिकों की जेब कैसे भरेगी, देश के नागरिकों की बचत कैसे बढ़ेगी और देश के नागरिक विकास के भागीदार कैसे बनेंगे, ये बजट इसकी एक बहुत मजबूत नींव रखता है।
आज जो बजट भारत की वित्त मंत्री आदरणीय श्रीमती निर्मला सीतारमण जी ने रखा है, वह बजट बहुत ही संतुलित, ऑल इंक्लूसिव और विकास को बढ़ावा देने वाला बजट है। यह बजट विकसित भारत के संकल्प को गति देने वाला बजट है। इस बजट में गरीब और किसान का कल्याण है, वंचितों का सम्मान है और नारी शक्ति और मध्यम वर्ग का उत्थान समाहित है। हमारा बजट इस प्रकार से कहा जाए तो यह आम व्यक्ति का बजट है, सिटीजन सेंट्रिक बजट है। ऐसे सर्वस्पर्शी और हर क्षेत्र के विकास को गति देने के लिए समर्पित बजट के लिए मैं आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी का हार्दिक अभिनंदन करता हूं। वित्त मंत्री श्रीमती निर्मला सीतारमण जी एवं उनकी पूरी टीम को सशक्त नेतृत्व ही विकसित भारत को आकार दे रहा है। प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के कुशल नेतृत्व में देश विकसित भारत की यात्रा का साक्षी बन रहा है। पिछले 10 वर्षों में प्रधानमंत्री जी ने अथक परिश्रम के साथ लगभग 25 करोड़ लोगों को गरीबी की रेखा से बाहर निकाला है। साथ ही देश के मध्यम वर्ग के परिवारों को बहुत बड़ी राहत प्रदान करते हुए टैक्स में के दायरे में छूट 12 लाख रुपए तक का बढ़ा दिया है। इस बजट में युवाओं के कौशल, कृषि में निवेश और ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में रोजगार
के विकल्प सृजित करने पर खासा ध्यान दिया गया है। इस बजट में अध्यात्मवाद और आधुनिकता का अद्भुत संगम देखने को मिलता है। रामायण सर्किट और बुद्ध सर्किट के निर्माण की घोषणा के साथ साथ राज्यों के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर विकास के लिए 1.5 लाख करोड़ रुपए का प्रावधान किया गया है। न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी मिशन के लिए 20,000 करोड़ रुपए की शुरुआत में भारत ऊर्जा क्षेत्र में आत्मनिर्भर बनने की दिशा में एक बड़ा कदम है। पर्यटन प्रमुख स्थलों का राज्यों की भागीदारी से विकास किया जाएगा, जिससे न केवल सांस्कृतिक धरोहर को संरक्षित किया जाएगा बल्कि स्थानीय रोजगार के अवसर भी बढ़ेंगे।
And that's the message coming in from the BJP chief on Budget 2025. We will continue to track all the developments coming in and decode the basic tenets of Budget 2025. For now, quick break. More news and updates on the other side.
Can you start banking?
सदस्यगण, बजट के बाद राज्यपाल अभिभाषण में आपको पर्याप्त अवसर दूंगा। मेरा आपसे निवेदन है, नहीं माननीय अखिलेश जी, आपने संसद की मर्यादा को आप बना के रखें। कभी बजट भाषण के अंदर इस तरीके का नहीं हुआ, ये उचित नहीं है, ये उचित नहीं है। अखिलेश जी प्लीज, मैं आपको मौका दूंगा राज्यपाल अभिभाषण पे, प्लीज। नो, ये तरीका ठीक नहीं है। नो, राज्यपाल अभिभाषण पे चर्चा होगी। नो तरीका।
Honorable Speaker, I present the budget for 25-26. This budget continues our government's efforts to A. Accelerate growth, B. Secure inclusive development, C. Invigorate private sector investments, D. Uplift household sentiments, and E. Enhance spending power of India's rising middle class. Together, we embark on a journey to unlock our nation's tremendous potential for greater prosperity and global positioning under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. As we complete the first quarter of the 21st century, continuing geopolitical headwinds suggest lower global economic growth over the medium term. However, our aspiration for a Vikasit Bharat inspires us, and the transformative work we have done during our government's first 2 terms guides us to march forward resolutely. Our economy is the fastest growing among all major economies. Our development track record for the past 10 years and structural reforms have drawn global attention. Confidence in India's capability and potential has only grown in this period. We see the next 5 years as a unique opportunity to realize Sabka Vikas, stimulating balanced growth of all regions. The great Telugu poet and playwright Gurujada Apparao had said, Deshamante matti kadoy, Deshamante manushuloy, meaning a country is not just its soil, a country is its people. In line with this, for us, Vikasit Bharat encompasses zero poverty, 100% quality good school education, access to high quality, affordable and comprehensive health care, 100% skilled labor with meaningful employment, 70% women in economic activities, and farmers making our country the food basket of the world. In this budget, the proposed development measures span 10 broad areas focusing on Garib, Youth, Annadata and Nari, spurring agricultural growth and productivity, building rural prosperity and resilience, taking everyone together on an inclusive growth path, boosting manufacturing and furthering Make in India, supporting MSMEs, enabling employment-led development, investing in people, economy and innovation, securing energy supplies, promoting exports and nurturing innovation. For this journey of development, our four powerful engines are agriculture, MSME, investments and exports. The fuel, our reforms, our guiding spirit.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Let's decode Budget 2025 with our guests. We're joined by Shubhrakant Pandey, former president of FICCI, Piyush Doshi, operating partner, Foundation for Economic Development, and S. Vasudevan, executive partner, LKS Attorneys. Mr. Pandey, I'll come to you first. If 1 is the status quo and 10 is a paradigm shift, where would you place this budget?
Look, I'm always wary about giving numbers to a budget because it's a very complex exercise and it is difficult to distill it down to on a 0 to 10 scale. What I will say is that it is a budget which ticks all the boxes in terms of expectations. Not least the significant tax relief which has been provided to the middle class. 1 lakh crore is a very large number, and it will find its way not just into people's hands but ultimately back into the economy, thereby providing a much needed boost to consumption. The other thing for me which stood out in the budget was the promise of reforms. Reforms as the fuel of growth is how the finance minister put it, and I think that is significant because a lot has been achieved over the years in terms of enhancing ease of doing business and enhancing ease of living, but more can certainly be done, and that is what seems to be the promise which has been held out, and I have no doubt will be acted upon. One final comment relating to the manufacturing sector, which is what I represent. I'm a very firm believer that for India to deliver sustained growth, the manufacturing sector has to do its fair share of heavy lifting and therefore needs attention. I think that has been provided in this budget with the National Manufacturing Mission, with a special focus on clean tech and MSMEs, as well as the labor-intensive sectors getting attention. Also, at a time when our own fundamentals are strong, but there are undoubtedly headwinds that we are facing due to global factors. I think the export promotion mission to be, to bring about coordinated action between the finance, commerce, and MSME ministries is a significant step which will, I think, deliver results. And all of this, of course, while sticking to the fiscal glide path. With the fisc being contained to 4.8% in the ongoing year and estimated at 4.4% for 25-26. I think that lends a lot of credibility to the budgeting exercise.
Right, so a lot of positive signals coming in from Budget 2025. And you're talking about the manufacturing sector. A state that the government is focusing on is, of course, Uttar Pradesh. And we're getting a reaction from Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. Let's listen in.
प्रधानमंत्री जी के मार्गदर्शन में केंद्रीय वित्त मंत्री श्रीमती निर्मला सीतारमण जी ने आज देश की संसद में देश का 2025-26 का आम बजट प्रस्तुत किया है। यह आम बजट विकसित भारत के संकल्प को साकार करने के लिए उठाए गए ठोस कदमों की एक आधारशिला है। प्रधानमंत्री जी ने ज्ञान का बजट बताकर 4 अक्षरों में से परिभाषित किया है। जी फॉर गरीब, वाई फॉर युवा, ए फॉर अन्नदाता और एन फॉर नारी शक्ति।
And Yogi Adityanath, they're hailing Budget 2025. Remember, Yogi Adityanath has said that Uttar Pradesh should be the economic engine of India in 2025, also putting forward his mission to create a $1 trillion economy for the state of Uttar Pradesh. Piyush Doshi, we were talking about the entire ease of doing business that Mr. Panda was also talking about. Would you say great leaps have been made in the ease of doing business in the last 10 years, or more work needs to be done when it comes to ending red tape and bottlenecks?
Yes, certainly glass half full. But what is most exciting is if you look at the economic survey, the entire first part, the preface, almost half of it talks about ease of doing business, deregulation. And looks like government has recognized that that's the most cost-effective way of generating growth. You can only provide so much incentive to the industry. But what you can do much more easily is if you just free them up. Our industry, our companies, our manufacturers are capable of competing globally. Our problem is that we cage them up in the maze of regulations. The concrete announcement in this budget is to form this high-level committee which will work over the next 12 months and submit specific recommendations to deregulate. I do hope that there is real intent behind it and we actually get rid of regulation which is truly troublesome for our industry. It ranges from land, labor, pollution, environment, building construction, logistics, every sector. Every sector, we must look at it very closely and find ways how we can make it easy for our manufacturers to operate in India and compete globally.
Right. And Mr. Panda, on that front, I wanted to ask you, this sense of harmony between the bureaucracy and the entrepreneurs, is this still a challenge for any government, be it at the national level or the state level? Right, we'll try to reconnect with Mr. Panda over there. But I want to then go to Mr. Vasudevan as well, Executive Partner, LKS Attorneys, who's joining us on the broadcast as well. Mr. Vasudevan, let's talk about the entire tax push that's come in from the Finance Minister to give more money to the middle class, to boost the spending power of the middle class. We've been talking about this and a lot of speculation and a lot of chatter happening on social media about the different financial instruments that are flooding the market these days. But when it comes to awareness among the middle class, among the salaried class over these instruments when it comes to expanding wealth and wealth generation, that continues to be low. Entry into the equity markets continues to be low. Do you think that is something that the government needs to address when it comes to overall wealth generation at the bottom level, especially every middle class household across this country?
Yeah, I think as you said, this is definitely going to result in more money in the hands of the middle and the lower middle class. Now, where this money is going to go, whether it is going to go into consumption or it is going to go into some kind of a saving, that is something which we have to see. But to my mind, looking at what they are targeting, I would say that a major portion of this extra money will be going into consumption rather than again going back into investment. I think already we have good amount of money which is going into the markets, and we have seen that in the past. Probably there is more money chasing less value at this point of time. So maybe it is to boost consumption. That seems to be the primary objective. Also, there may be a corresponding reduction in the expenditure from the government side. So probably they would want to balance it out, and maybe that will also increase the other indirect tax collections once the consumption goes up. So I would say that it is primarily targeting more consumption rather than investments going into the market.
Right. And when it comes to the infrastructure that's in place to streamline taxation, to expand the ambit of taxation, leveraging technology when it comes to taxation, has the government made huge leaps on that front?
Definitely. I think this has been a process which has been going on for the last few years. The whole automation, say the facility where you get the annual information statement and the pre-filled returns which come in, where all the high value transactions are getting reported. I think the government now has good amount of data with them, which they are now sort of getting used to using it appropriately to catch the people who are probably not paying the appropriate taxes. And also it is easing the compliance from a taxpayer standpoint. So today the amount of effort that it takes to go and file a return is probably much lower, and most of the cases you don't need a professional to help you out on that. So that is also increasing the compliance level. And as you said, the whole TDS, TCS provisions which are there, which has been simplified now, but it is also a way in which the tax net is getting widened and more people are coming into the net. So I think the increasing the tax base at the same time, moderating the tax rates seems to be the mantra. And maybe over the last 3-4 years, we have seen that widening happening. Probably this year, they wanted to give back something to the middle class by way of reduction in the tax rate.
Right. And Mr. Doshi, I want to come to you on the larger point, the macroeconomic point at the end of the day. Now, something that Congress MP Shashi Tharoor and a lot of people in the Congress party also talking about, that when it comes to job generation, getting more youth into the economy, getting them on the right track, because we have skilled youth, we have educated youth, but when it comes to leveraging their skills in the overall economy, that's something that the government has not achieved a great deal on that front. In fact, for that matter, the gig economy, which let's face it, at the end of the day, it has a lot of opportunities. It has a lot of limited intake when it comes to the youth of this country. So on that front, and at the same time, the gig economy also starts, stops, it starts and stops. There's no regular flow when it comes to the momentum of the gig economy. On that front, has the government, in your opinion, not given the youth what is required to create a steady stream of, let's say, infrastructure, or to create a steady stream of employment opportunities to ensure that their skills are leveraged in the economy, because job generation and job viability continues to remain an issue?
I would say that the way to create opportunities for youth is by unleashing our private sector, because government has limited resources. All these sections of society are asking for these resources. Government cannot provide the jobs. Right. So ultimately, jobs in the economy will be created by our private sector companies. The question we have to ask is, why aren't they creating more jobs? Yeah. Why are Chinese companies creating the jobs for their youth? Our companies are not able to do it. And I think the answer is, once again, around our focus on exports. We need to tap global markets. We need to promote sectors like tourism, and we need to promote ease of doing business, attract investment. If these factors are taken care of, the jobs will be there and youth will be able to realize the potential. There is some role to be played by skilling, but my belief is that it's not primarily a supply side problem. It's primarily a demand side problem. There is no point skilling our youth, making all of them graduates. Already India is producing almost 1 crore graduates a year, but we are only producing about 15 to 20 lakh formal jobs. So the whole question is, it's not as if by producing 1.5 crore graduates, we will be able to meet their aspirations. In fact, we will create more frustrated youth. What we need to do is improve the quantity and quality of jobs in the economy, which means we need to create an ecosystem in which our companies can thrive, in which our companies can look outside rather than looking within. In labor alone, a typical manufacturing unit has to do almost 15,000 compliances. Now, if a company is busy doing that, how will it compete in the global market and create jobs? We have exports of about $450 billion in manufacturing. China has almost $3 trillion, right? This is the difference in terms of creating jobs. If we are able to get our manufacturing engine growing, the manufacturing companies will create those jobs, which will also create the consumption, which will create additional gig economy jobs. I don't look down on gig economy jobs. You have the high-paying jobs, and those people spend on it. But as the high-paying jobs become more and higher-paying, then the gig economy workers will also have better bargaining power, and they will be also able to work in better condition. Our entire problem is we don't have enough jobs going around.
So far in the gig economy, the problem is that the higher end jobs are really like few, and there's like huge salaries there, and the lower end jobs are massive, and there's very low paying at the end of the day. That kind of gap is massive in that gig economy. And clearly, I completely agree with you that to address that, it's something that you have to remove the cage around the private sector. You need to make them more competitive. Government working on that front, but clearly, as you were pointing out, more needs to be done, and that seems to be the mission of the Modi government to, remove the restraints of the private sector to ensure that the growth momentum stays. We're also getting a reaction from Amitabh Kant, former CEO of the Niti Aayog and the G20 Sherpa, on his take on Budget 2025.
There are two aspects to this budget. The first, of course, is the immediate impact which is being felt by the middle class. I'd like you to sort of comment on that. Is that enough? Does it go far enough? Will it do what many people are hoping it will do, which is to boost consumption? That's one. And the other aspect is, have we got lost in the headline and therefore we are not concentrating on the larger picture? Is this a budget therefore for growth that will take us beyond 8%?
So Rahul, first and foremost, this budget, the attempt has been to provide a fillip to demand, push consumption in a big way, and give away about 1 lakh of crores of direct taxes so that there's greater purchasing power in the hands of the middle class. That, to my mind, was important at this particular point of your economy. But if you look at the overall budget, it's been done in a responsible manner because the budget also aims at a macroeconomic stability, the fiscal consolidation, because the RE fiscal deficit was about 4.8% and it aims at about 4.4% for the coming year, which I think is being very, very fiscally responsible. Because you also have the challenge of inflation and therefore you need to do it in a disciplined manner. But the budget also has a very, very strong focus on labor-intensive sectors. This is the first time I've seen so much of emphasis on tourism, on textile, on footwear, on leather. So these are all labor-intensive sector. The other is that the job creation in a big way happens through the startup movement, and to replenish the 10,000 crores for the startup fund of fund will have a multiplier impact, because for every rupee that will be put in by the fund of funds, you'll have 4 more rupees being put on by the venture capitalists. So the multiplier impact will be enormous for the startup. And then putting another 20,000 crore for innovation and saying that there'll be a separate fund for deep tech, which requires a lot of patient capital. These are very good moves for young entrepreneurship, startups, etc. The other thing that's very important to say is that the credit guarantees for both MSMEs and startups have been pushed by the government of India. That is what you can do through the fiscal mechanism. And now, the last bit I would say is that the government's focus on regulatory reforms in a big way, because I've been a long-term believer in doing away with a lot of regulatory cholesterol. So this focus on saying that we'll scrap rules, regulation, procedures, 1 year time we'll do this, that to my mind is a very good move. And lastly, I would say making the focus emphasis on clean tech and nuclear energy are very good moves, because we import enormous amount of solar energy, solar equipments, we do that in electric vehicle, we do that for battery storage. To say that we are going to push for Make in India and all these areas will give you a lot of push towards Make in India. And opening up the insurance to 100% is also is a very progressive move to my mind, because the insurance penetration in India is still very, very low. So that should help you to take insurance to rural areas as well.
And I'm also joined by Dr. Arvind Lal, Associate Member, FICCI and Executive Chairman, Dr. Lal, Path Labs and Managing Trustee of ALVL Foundation. Thank you, Doctor, for joining us on the broadcast. Dr. Lal, how do you see Budget 2025 when it comes to making India competitive in the tech sector?
Right. I think it's a good budget overall, and especially for the healthcare sector. there is an overall increase by about 11%, in which infrastructure and NDHM, which is our national health mission, they get the majority, 40 and 50%. And the PMJ, which is the government's major platform, also gets about 24%. And the NHM, which is the National Health Mission, should have been given little more. It is still stuck at 3%. So that could have been more. And the economic survey, as you already know, had said about the national health budget to be about 6.1 lakh crores, which is about 1.89% of the GDP. Now, this is slightly less, in my opinion, because the government has said that it should be around 2.5%. So this should come out, come up slightly more. And the good thing is that now the cancer care daycare centers are going to be 200 more. I wish there was enough emphasis also on some kind of a screening of the general population of these, lifestyle diseases, which cancer is just one of them. The other being diabetes, high blood pressure, liver, kidney, etc. But I think this screening of the normal population in India has to come up now. And of course, about the drugs also, the 36 drugs have been made exempt from customs duty, which is a very good thing. And the tourism in healthcare is also going to increase. The number of seats in medical colleges have also been hiked up to 10,000 per year and 75,000 in 5 years. So overall, it's a good health budget.
Right. And Dr. Lal, we saw during COVID time how tech was leveraged to make healthcare so much more accessible, to improve the entire healthcare sector. Also, we saw this harmony between the bureaucracy and the overall medical sector. Do you see the government moving ahead in that direction to expand access to healthcare as well as make it a more efficient sector?
Well, it cannot go back to the ways of the COVID, time. But I think the government in its own way is coming forward now and taking more leaps into the healthcare sector. And our, basic thing, what was there even at the time of COVID was test, track and treat. And these days with these diseases which I have just mentioned, the non-communicable diseases, each one of them requires testing. And the one where you can actually catch hold of is cancer. Of course, diabetes, high blood pressure are also very, very high in India. So everything needs slightly more focus from the government side into, testing and tracking. That's all I have to say.
Right. Testing, tracking, something that the government needs to focus on. Gentlemen, please stay with us. We're going to take a quick break now as we decode Budget 2025 further. Please don't go away.
सदस्यगण, बजट के बाद राज्यपाल अभिभाषण में आपको पर्याप्त अवसर दूंगा। मेरा आपसे निवेदन है, नहीं माननीय अखिलेश जी, आपने संसद की मर्यादा को आप बना के रखे हैं। कभी बजट भाषण के अंदर इस तरीके का नहीं हुआ, ये उचित नहीं है, ये उचित नहीं है। अखिलेश जी प्लीज, मैं आपको मौका दूंगा राज्यपाल अभिभाषण पे, प्लीज। नो, ये तरीका ठीक नहीं है। नो, राज्यपाल अभिभाषण पे चर्चा होगी। नो तरीका।
Honorable Speaker, I present the budget for 25-26. our government's efforts to A. Accelerate growth, B. Secure inclusive development, C. Invigorate private sector investments, D. Uplift household sentiments, and E. Enhance spending power of India's rising middle class. Together, we embark on a journey to unlock our nation's tremendous potential for greater prosperity and global positioning under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. As we complete the first quarter of the 21st century, continuing geopolitical headwinds suggest lower global economic growth over the medium term. However, our aspiration for a Vikasit Bharat inspires us, and the transformative work we have done during our government's first 2 terms guides us to march forward resolutely. Our economy is the fastest growing among all major economies. Our development track record for the past 10 years and structural reforms have drawn global attention. Confidence in India's capability and potential has only grown in this period. We see the next 5 years as a unique opportunity to realize Sabka Vikas, stimulating balanced growth of all regions. The great Telugu poet and playwright Gurujada Apparao had said, Deshamante matti kadoy, Deshamante manushuloy, meaning a country is not just its soil, a country is its people. In line with this, for us, Vikasit Bharat encompasses zero poverty, 100% quality good school education, access to high quality, affordable and comprehensive health care, 100% skilled labor with meaningful employment, 70% women in economic activities, and farmers making our country the food basket of the world. In this budget, the proposed development measures span 10 broad areas, focusing on Garib, Youth, Annadata, and Nari, spurring agricultural growth and productivity, building rural prosperity and resilience, taking everyone together on an inclusive growth path, boosting manufacturing and furthering Make in India, supporting MSMEs, enabling employment-led development, investing in people, economy, and innovation, securing energy supplies, promoting exports, and nurturing innovation. For this journey of development, our 4 powerful engines are agriculture, MSME, investments, and exports. The fuel, our reforms, our guiding spirit, inclusivity, and the destination, Vikasit Bharat. This budget aims to initiate transformative reforms across 6 domains. During the first 5 years, these will augment our growth potential.
CNN News 18 and DBS Bank Budget Day Studio.
Hello everyone, today we are coming to you live from the CNN News 18 and DBS Bank Budget Day Studio. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented the Union Budget 2025 in the Parliament today. The budget comes with a huge boost for the middle class, with income tax payment exempted up to 12 lakhs income per year. The step will provide a major relief for the middle class, which will be left with a lot more money in their hands. TCS threshold has been raised from 7 lakh to 10 lakh rupees. In a push for education, 3 centers of excellence for artificial intelligence will be established. The capacity of IITs and medical colleges will also be expanded. Meanwhile, the union budget comes with major allocations for poll-bound Bihar. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced that a Makhna board will be established for Bihar and training support will be provided for Makhna farmers. The budget also aims to boost infrastructure capacity in Bihar and facilitate the establishment of greenfield airports. Financial support for the for the crucial Western Kosi Canal project has also been announced that is expected to benefit farmers of the Mithilanchal region. First, let's listen in to Nirmala Sitharaman and Prime Minister Narendra Modi's message to the entire nation.
Personal income tax reforms with special focus on middle class. Democracy, demography, and demand are the key support pillars in our journey towards Vikasit Bharat. The middle class provides strength for India's growth. This government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, has always believed in the admirable energy and ability of the middle class in nation building. In recognition of their contribution, we have periodically reduced their tax burden. Right after 2014, the nil tax slab was raised to 2.5 lakhs of rupees, which was further raised to 5 lakh rupees in 2019 and to 7 lakh rupees in 2023. This is reflective of our government's trust on the middle class taxpayers. I am now happy to announce that there will be no income tax payable up to income of 12 lakh rupees.
ये बजट एक फोर्स मल्टीप्लायर है। ये बजट सेविंग्स को बढ़ाएगा, इन्वेस्टमेंट को बढ़ाएगा, कंजम्पशन को बढ़ाएगा